Call to order the Town of St. John Plan Commission meeting, regular meeting for May 15th, 2024. First, would invite anybody who's able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
1 second, sir. Okay. Joe.
Gomez-Tego.
Gomez-Tego.
Here.
Peter. Clidris. Sorry,
He's absent.
Okay. John Gill.
Here.
Bob Valois.
Here.
Russ Vogel.
Here.
Justin Nestor.
Present.
Colin Emway.
Emshway, yeah, I'm here.
Emway. Adam Decker.
Present.
John Dykstra.
Here.
Bill Manafopoulos.
Here.
Ashley Abernathy is present.
We have a quorum. Item 4, minutes. First up would be review and approval of the April 17th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. I assume everybody's had a chance to review. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 17th, 2024 Plan Commission regular meeting minutes.
Second it.
Motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Gomez-Tego. Any further comments, discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, the May 1st, 2024 Plan Commission Study Session minutes. Any questions or comments? If not, would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Gill, is there a second? Or Mr. Boy, sorry. I'll get it.
I'll second it then.
Second by Mr. Gill, we'll get it cleaned up. All in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is agenda item number 5, public hearing. We do have several here tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We are going to get through all the hearings, just a couple ground rules that I'd like to cover. Each of the applicants will have the opportunity to come up, make their presentations. At that point, the commission will have the chance to have any comments, questions that might be directed toward the applicant. At that point, then with this section for each, a public comment for each of those proposals will be opened up. We'll invite members of the public to come up at that point. There is a sign-up sheet. I'm going to go grab those so we can allow members of the public to come up. I just want to remind everybody of proper rules of decorum. Please keep your remonstrations to the point and germane to the presentation. We do have the ability, and I'm going to be looking at time, that putting time limits on just because of the number of people that are here and likely want to speak, and I want to make sure that everybody has the chance to be heard. So with that, the only other thing that I would say is that anybody who does come up to speak publicly does need to give their name and address, state it clearly for the record, and then we'll be good to go. So with that, item A, 2024-06 Franciscan Alliance. This is the proposed preliminary plat of the Franciscan Health St. John Medical Center located on the east side of Highway US 41.
Good evening, everyone. I'm attorney Randy Wiley, 429 West Lincoln Highway, Schererville, Indiana, law firm of Weezer and Wiley. I'm pinch hitting for Mr. Weezer tonight. He's unavailable to be with us. You will recall you were here last month for the public hearing started on this project, and it was continued to resolve and at least address some final engineering issues. Our engineer with KLM has been in communications with Mr. Dykstra, and in fact we received a letter today, dated today, from Mr. Dykstra regarding those issues that have been questioned.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Nobody can hear this man.
Nothing.
So
What's
could you
going
pull
on?
that down a little bit more?
Sure.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I see.
Attorney Randy Wiley here for the Franciscan Alliance. Last time we were here, there were some questions about final engineering issues, and it was tabled or deferred to tonight to try and address those issues. I had a discussion with Mr. Dykstra. He sent a letter today, dated May 15th, 2024, talking about that. One final issue is in regards to a dual tap request by the town and the staff. And I just, if Mr. Dykstra wants to talk about that, we would simply ask for approval of the preliminary plat based on that final issue and the final submission from our engineers KLM. And Mr. Dykstra can talk to you about what their discussions were and the letter that he issued today.
John, do you want
Yeah.
fill us in on that a little bit from your
Sure.
perspective, please?
We've had correspondence by telephone and by email between me, several others, and in our office, and with town staff as well about the water main. Early on, there were some sketches talked about, and Kimley Horn made their best attempt to comply with that. All along, they intended to meet what the town preference was. Some things were recommended and some were required. The dual tap was required, and so the latest plans were given to us yesterday from the engineer I was dealing with was Connor. And then we reviewed it, we consulted with staff as well, had some back and forth, and then we sent what you saw in the letter, attached to the letter was, here's a markup of what, between engineering and staff, this is how we would like the water main with the dual tap. That's just our language for it, so this was a visual to show, here's where there should be valves here, here, here. The tap should go, and the line should go around the building. You know, would have the normal fire hydrants and so forth for fire protection. One thing we wanted to do was eliminate a dual line. They had a water main and a fire line, and we found that unusual. Normally it was done the way we show it in this sketch, so that's what we're asking. We have not yet received back that corrected plan, so that would be a final step on this, and that's why my letter didn't say it was satisfactory yet, so that's why. So if that helps you.
Yeah. And this has been a continued 2, maybe 3 times of the public hearing, and I understand the desire to get some finality on that, but I think it's been consensus among the commission that we don't really want to have, you know, the conditional or contingency approval on making sure that everything is wrapped up. So from my perspective, I think we'd be inclined to, you know, entertain a motion maybe to continue the hearing yet again, pending final resolution of the engineering issues.
I'll make a motion to keep the public hearing open and defer until next month.
I second it.
Motion by Mr. Valoy, second by Mr. Gomsagel. Any further comments, questions on the motion? If not, all in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B, 2024-02, Suncrest Christian Church proposed rezone from R2 PUD, single-family residential, to C2 Highway Commercial District of Suncrest Christian Church property on West 109th Avenue, approximately 290 feet east of Park Place, and US 231, approximately 4.86 acres. Mr. Viss.
Good evening, Mr. President. Good to be with you here this evening. Attorney Nathan Viss on behalf of Suncrest Christian Church. Apologize for the snafu last month. There was a newspaper that didn't provide publication. So if I may approach, I've got just a brief summary.
Counselor?
So this, as you may recall, is part of the ongoing proposed development that's located over on 231 near the entryway near Park Place. There's approximately about 16 acres that is located there. We've been before you previously on the piece that's located to the right of this that is zoned R2 at the present time, and we've previously received approval from both here as well as the town council for a variance to allow a church to be placed thereon, period. Recognizing that we've got additional acreage to the left adjacent to where the oral surgery facility is located as well as the dental facility, one of the items that the church has taken a look at is to say, well, how do we be a good neighbor to those around us? How do we be a good neighbor to the town? And there's a recognition that about 4.86, almost 5 acres that's located there does not need to remain R2 designation, is not necessary for the eventual church build-out that we're looking to do. But instead, we took a look at what the town's long-term plans are, and the town's long-term plan for that corridor is an overlay district in which they're desirous of implementing commercial development. So what we are proposing here this evening is a rezone from R2 PUD, the way that it's currently zoned dating back about 2 decades, to a C2 designation. Now, looking at the three criteria that you have for a rezone, as I've put before you this evening some proposed findings of fact, I do believe that this meets the requirements for what we need. Number one is this fits cleanly within the long-term planning for the town. Number two is, as we've identified before, to the right of this and to the back side of this is we have still the R2 designation proposed church use, which acts as a buffer between this and some proposed business use. In addition to that, when we take a look at the positive effect that this is going to have versus if we were to keep it an existing R designation, the third and fourth pages of the packet that I've provided for you does an analysis, if we were to develop this 4.86 acres, the positive tax impact that this is going to have for the town of St. John, just using numbers from 2 years ago from very similar style development in Cedar Lake, you're looking at an accrual of approximately $1.2 million in tax basis. Update to last year's numbers, and that number will also drastically increase. So we're before you this evening respectfully requesting that we can rezone this 4.86 acres from R2 PUD to C2 highway zoning. We'll entertain any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the panel?
I think, Ashley, you've got the picture on the screen.
It just popped up.
Sure. Yeah, so if you look there, you can see the dark gray is the 4.86 acres. The acreage to the right is that which I've identified before, which maintains its R2 designation. There is a variance there for potential or for allowance of church use. And this fits cleanly up against the existing business commercial use, the C2 use that's to the left to that side. And this is clearly within the overlay district that's been enacted with long-term range planning for this corridor stretch.
So you're just trying to bring it to C2 like everything else along there is eventually supposed to be, correct?
That is absolutely correct. I guess candidly, we could have preserved the R2 designation. It didn't make sense, A, notating what the long-term planning is, B, what the proposed use is, and C, what's for the best use for everyone here in town, and that makes sense to make use of this corridor.
People don't want to build houses right on 231.
Not preferably.
Okay.
That's correct.
From the town standpoint, engineering or otherwise, do we have any questions, comments? No? Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. With that, I will open public comment on 2024-02 Suncrest Christian Church, the proposed rezone. Again, any members of the public who would like to come up, speak for or against the proposed rezone, you're more than welcome to do so. Just need your name and address for the record, please.
Douglas Blocker, 10591 Juniper Lane, St. John. Yeah, a few months ago, the church did come in. They submitted a concept plan of showing the church and the commercial piece of property. The concept plan showed probably about 95% of the property covered either by buildings or parking spaces. The place was pretty packed with neighbors' concerns, and neighbors expressed concern regarding drainage and detention. Traffic was a big issue. Screening of the parking lots where they had spaces right up to the property lines, how they were going to be screened, and commercial uses, what's going to go there. As of this date, again, we heard it tonight, they want to be good neighbors, but none of those issues have been brought up or discussed any further. They gone ahead, got the approval for the church, now they're going to push through the commercial for the commercial property, but we still don't have any answers. And the other thing I find funny is, and I don't know if you guys caught it, where when they bought the church property, part of the deal was they had to get the zoning for this property, which I don't understand why, but I can't see the church spending an extra $300,000 to buy 5 acres of property if they don't need it. They're not going to be the developer of it. So, what was the deal? Did they buy it for $1, get the rezoning, going to turn it back to the original owners back for $1 so he could develop with what he wants? Those are my concerns, and I think it's, until they answer those questions, I don't think you should be approving with the zoning.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Karen Smith, 8595 Larkspur Lane. And so couple of my concerns when he was talking, that he was saying three things. Cleanly, the town's long-term planning. Not quite too sure about that long-term planning, because when we were here before in the last meeting, they tried to do the whole thing C2. And according to this list of the plans, C2 is a whole bunch of stuff that can go on there that's scary. I live in the 55 and older community, and there are a lot of people in the 55 and older community, a lot of widows. And so all this traffic, all this, they moved here. This is the house they want to die in. They want to be protected. So I'm a little concerned with the town's long-term planning if you approve that. Like, a lot of us are like, okay, go ahead and do that. But now, after listening to him, I got a little spark in my head going, somebody commented you don't want to put houses there along 231 because it's zoned R2. And then in February and March of this year, you guys approved, because it currently is an R2, and the board has to give special exemption for a church to go there, and you guys have done that. And so I just want to make sure that a lot of stuff is going on in this community, which is, whatever, but don't want to have problems on down the line. If you guys approve this and put that there, then the comment was, well, nobody wants to build a house close to 231. Then what does that mean? Then are you going then approve, like right here? Is this going to be, then they're going to come back and say, you know what, we want to do this C2 because this is 231 and this is good commercial land, for people. So what's going to happen to the people here? This is just one way in, and I understand everybody wants to build the town and do this, but we have to protect all of these neighbors. And you guys are the people that are there, that we come here and we talk to you guys because we just want what we bought to be protected, and we understand whoever buys the land, they can do what they want, but I just hope that this long-term planning, that you guys are the ones that protect us because we bought these houses. And I do have another question. So J.D. Horton is building, I call them the barracks, or whatever his name is, the Horton, building the barracks. Did you guys put in there that they have to give some money for the roads? Because they're coming down Larkspur Lane and Brookhaven with their big, heavy trucks, and they're ruining our roads. So I get it, they're building it, but they can't come in off of 231 and Park Place and with a big old tractor and do a loop. So they come down Larkspur Lane and go to Brookhaven, and our roads are getting ruined by that. So I hope that you guys put into place that J.D. Horton has to help fix our roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Harold Munkin, 8443 Larkspur Terrace. Question though, if we're entering off of Park Place to go to this commercial area, and there's no entrance off of 231, am I correct in what I'm looking at? No road entrance, I should say. Am I reading this map correctly?
This just has the zoning highlighted. It's not like a site plan where it would have ingress and egress.
Okay, but it shows arrows going into what would be, I think it's called 108th. Is the street directly behind the dental office? This is like a partial street off of Park Place?
What these arrows are indicating are kind of where property lines are, the north line of lot 1418. So this
Okay.
is kind of what those are. So this is just kind of outlining this dark gray,
Okay.
pointing where those property boundaries are going to be for this section of the rezone. There still has to, if the rezone is given a favorable recommendation or unfavorable, and if approved by the town council, and all those are if, because it all still has to be approved, they still would need to come in for preliminary platting, final platting, site plan, and all that will have those forms of ingress, egress on there. So there, even if this rezone goes through, there's still more steps that have to occur.
I understand it, but it all starts here tonight. Am I correct?
This is just the rezone, correct, sir.
All right, but my question then is, what I would call 108th Street, if you're familiar with it. It's a small little stub behind the second dental office that would lead from the nursing homes going east into this property area. If that's the road coming in, then that's fine. Traffic would be a little better that way, but if we're coming in off of 231, then we do for another egress to get into the place. 231, we all know is a zoo already. It's crazy. Klein Avenue Parish, 2 years ago we started this, nothing's happened. I know it's the state, but what is the town doing to push the state to do something? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in public who would like to come up?
My name is Greg Ruiz. I'm at 8625 Larkspur Terrace. I echo a lot of the sentiments my neighbor Karen talked about with regard to the rezoning, but I also want to address, what was brought up about Suncrest Church being a good neighbor in our community, and I would like to see them maybe get some church members or some volunteers to come and pick up all the trash and the litter that's in that empty lot. My lot backs up into, or my property backs up into that lot. And I'm getting a lot of that construction debris that's coming onto my property. I'm having to go out there and clean it up myself. If they can send some folks out there and do that, that would be great, because I've talked to many neighbors who are having the same issues. So yeah, I mean, again, being good neighbors means helping and bringing folks out to do that. So I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to come up? Come on up, sir.
I'm Walter Wazowski. I live at 9000 Finley Court. My question is, what type of commercial properties will be allowed in this tract of land? Can we get a detailed list?
There's certain allowable uses within C2 that's built into the town ordinance. So there wouldn't be a detailed list. There's just a number of uses that are allowed.
Could we get a list seeing those uses so we understand them?
We can make a list available to you.
And that can be posted or sent to our association?
We can send it to the association or email it to.
Thank you. Also, it's my understanding this will be built in 3 phases. How long from beginning to end, from the first phase to the third? Any estimate of time? It may be dependent on sales, but, any ballpark figure.
All I would say is there's not an actual site plan right now. So all that's contemplated tonight is changing the zoning to that C2 designation that you just asked about, right? As far as the specifics of what will go on that property, who might buy it, what their site plan might look like, that is part of the process that would still have to happen.
So it's indefinite at this time?
From my perspective, I would say yes, yeah.
Okay. One last thing, no matter what happens with this tract of land, a lot of us will be looking out our back window at it for the rest of our lives. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment on 2024-02? That is the first call. I will offer a second call for any public comment. So this is just on the Suncrest project. Each individual agenda item is a separate public hearing.
It's a little hard to hear people we don't
Okay. All right, so I'll actually ask again if there's any public comment on the Suncrest Christian Church proposed rezone. First call. Second call. And third and final call. And with that, public comment is closed for that hearing. At this point, Mr. Fiss, I'll invite you to come back up and address any of the concerns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the concerns that are raised here this evening. Anytime you have a growing municipality and you buy a property and suddenly your backyard changes, as mine has in Cedar Lake, one gets concerned, and that's one of the difficulties you have in a growing community. Things will change. But recognizing that, I think what's important this evening is that what's before you is not the what may go in the proposed area where the church is. Where we are currently at is addressing a zoning change, and the zoning change is 4.86 acres that's adjacent to an existing commercial use that's then buttressed in between that and the residential area, and it's against 231 that has access. Now, one of the concerns that has been raised is one of traffic, and again, that's not part of the zoning consideration per se. That's the next stage that we get to when we get into platting and site mapping out. But one thing we have done is we've done our due diligence. We've talked to the state of Indiana. The state of Indiana has recognized to us that they're aware of traffic on 231, and they've expressed to us is that for ingress egress along this corridor, it would be a right turn-in lane only. So that is going to help when it comes to traffic flow through the area. It's what they would allow. It's also my understanding that there are a variety of agreements that the town has with adjacent parcels in the area as to the future development of a possibility for some sort of traffic control at the intersection that's Park Place and 231. But again, these are considerations when we move to the next step. Now, I also understand that everyone would like to see, well, what's going to go here? Who's going to go here? I would as well. My clients would love to have a genie in a bottle that says there are going to be X number of clients that come in or are going to rent or purchase. We just don't have that. The question is whether or not it makes sense from a municipal development status to say this is where we want a commercial corridor to be. That's the question before us. If we can achieve past that, then absolutely there'll be future public hearings where we can have dialogue about what does traffic control look like, what do setbacks look like, what does greenery look like, all of that. And the public is going to be definitely a part of that process to the extent that there are things outside the bounds of your zoning code. We welcome that dialogue. And I would say, from the sense of the church being a good neighbor, since last summer, they have made outreaches to the community to say, we welcome meetings with you to talk about this. And I'm glad there was a concern raised about last fall, all of this being C2. Initially, when we came before you and in dialogue with past persons that were in town hall, that was the thought process. Let's change this all to C2 because that allows a church. But on the eve of that hearing, we stepped back and said, you know what? That probably doesn't make sense because that puts this 20-plus acres entirely C2 against a residential neighborhood. And after spending a significant amount of money, we withdrew. And that's why we applied only for a variance and are nestling the C2 in the bottom left as you see there. So again, my clients would love to have more plans along the way, but it's incremental steps. We follow the municipal planning process. The next step, once designs are, if we pass the zoning this evening, then that will be part of the public process. So appreciate the questions, and I'll entertain any additional questions that may be raised from the committee.
Any questions, comments from the panel? Go ahead.
I have a question for you. You presented to us the Suncrest Plaza projected tax revenue. What was the purpose of that?
Sure. So one of the questions that was raised last year by your predecessors that sat on this panel was a question to say, well, if we do change from the residential proposed use that's here, and if we were to change and allow some commercial, the question that they had was, what is going to be the tax effect on the town? Because there was a concern to say, if we keep it residential, is there more of a tax benefit? And that was the genesis behind presenting this last year. The other consideration that was raised by your prior panel that sat here last summer was, if we maintain this purely commercial versus purely residential, what's the effect on the town, meaning from a town ability to service? And the other thing that we were able to share last summer, the conversation then, was to say if this were all developed residential, it would add an additional drain on town resources for maintenance of streets, for water and things of that nature. So that was the purpose behind showcasing that if we meet the corridor overlay, there's a positive tax effect from a property tax perspective.
Well, do you feel that having this kind of assessed value, it's a function? Everything is a function with the assessed value in the tax. But it'll also put a burden on the community, police, traffic, all those little things that, are hidden, that it will be absorbed by C2.
There's, as an economist, as you know, there's positives, gives, and effects with.
The unintended consequences, like someone said. I'm sorry to interrupt, sir.
No, that's.
I'm terribly sorry. Go ahead, you continue.
And I think that's a great point. And one could say, and you weigh the pros and the cons. If we stay the traditional residential route, what's the positive, negative effect? If we go the commercial route, what's the positive and negative effect? And my sole reason with presenting that was to say, from a long-term perspective, from building the base in the town needs for infrastructure, this is very much a positive.
But you just heard someone speak about the fact that there are some unintended consequences on the impact of having trucks do some heavy-duty damage on some infrastructure that we've had there for so many years, and all of a sudden, who's going to take care of that? And it's not the assessed value, it's not the town, I hope not. And so there's a question.
No, and I've experienced that in other communities, and you have a hope when you design a community that you hold back monies from a final top layer, right? And you hope that a community is going to be quickly developed so that at the end of the day you've got that holdback and you can finish that top layer. This proposed plan back in 2004, when it was envisioned approximately 800 acres, was a magnanimous one. And to think that it could be developed in 10 or 15 years and you'd be able to hold back and all the construction would be done and there would be no more construction over the roadway, not feasible. But what we're dealing with here is if there's going to be construction traffic, is you're coming right in off Park Place for less than several hundred feet or coming in off of a state highway.
So then the levy that we will be imposed on the community will be immediately absorbed by the unintended consequences of the traffic.
I think
the
whether
trucks and everything that you have. I'm just.
Sure, whether, I mean,
and then it would be worthless to put something as, this is what we're going to have is assessed value and increase that's going to help the community, but
I think also, Joe, as far as the traffic impact and everything else, that's figured when they come in for their permits also with their impact fees, road impact fees, so that those road improvements are also offset by that.
Sure. Joe makes that's a great point.
Bill.
Sorry, Bill.
Don't worry. I'm sorry.
Still learning names. And that's a great point. And we could sit here and we could whiteboard and say there's positives and negatives, but I think this is in a TIF district, so the amount of compensation that the town is going to harbor that they can apply towards necessary infrastructure is tremendous. Now, if you were to say, for example, put in 80 or 90 homes in this area, can you imagine the truck traffic that would generate during the time period? So that would be a negative. So I can see it. We could put negatives on the commercial side. We can put negatives on the residential side. There's also positives.
Speak to, not necessarily for my edification, but for those that have come up, about how the town has a comprehensive plan, what that is, and how this aligns with what that plan says that area should be.
Sure. So I don't have the exact date, but both along Highway 41 as well as 231, the town of St. John and your forefathers, so to speak, have created a vision. And that's what any municipality does. And I think I was part of, maybe a lot of people in this room were part of the study sessions that happened in this room starting last spring into the summer. And the conversations were, what are concerns, opportunity areas that we have here in town? How can we address those opportunity areas? Not problems, they're opportunities to resolve. And some of the concerns that I recall at the several meetings that I was at being raised by several neighbors, whether it was not-for-profit, whether it was business, whether it was residential, was we need places where we can go. We need a place where we can develop a tax base. We need to manage traffic, all of that. And we need to identify our major corridors. And our major corridors in town, 231 and the T intersection of Highway 41. You build off traffic. Traffic generates revenue when it comes to businesses. That's high visibility. That's the way the commercial world is going to work. And then there's the question of, well, then how do you overlap then with residential? So you try to create buffer zones in between to try to create a little bit of disconnect between the two of them. And it's difficult. But here you take a look at what are the advantages that you have as a town of St. John. It's the 231 corridor. It's the 41 corridor, and how do you capitalize upon that traffic, so to speak, and benefit from that? And that's why the 231 overlay was created, to recognize that along this strip, we want long-term to design this for some commercial use.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the panel?
Nathan, and I think one of the residents, I know you don't have a certain timeline, but as far as an overview of how long you think the build out for the commercial portion, and then also with the church itself, can you comment on that or give a little insight on that?
They might throw something at me from the back, but Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the first aspect would be just the commercial development to get that move forward. Some examples could be if you've been to Cedar Lake, the new development that's over by Strax. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I sat on the redevelopment commission when that came through. It's an amazing contribution to the community. Coffee shops, small medical facilities. It's a wonderful asset and boon to the community. It's not high traffic generation. So I believe that's the first aspect. Then the second aspect would careful design. When you build a church, when you build a facility that the community gathers around, you got to do it right, right? So that's going to be a little bit longer step to really make sure that we have the church design done right and done well. So the first aspect is the commercial portion.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
I have a comment. I just want to say that with this is just the rezone portion. There's a lot of hoops that everyone has to jump through before we get to groundbreaking and stuff like that. And you guys have heard these residents and their opinions, and us as the Plan Commission have to take those into consideration as well. So if rezone gets approved tonight, then the next step obviously is to come back to us and go from there. We will keep their opinions down on paper, so when the development does come in, we would love to see these residents get taken care of.
I appreciate that. We've made sure that in our outreaches that we've made, there has been notices that this is forthcoming, trying to explain what's going on. That I know the church has made themselves available for questions, so I assure you we'll continue to do that.
We'll assure you we will as well.
Any other questions, comments? Going once, going twice. With that, with the understanding that the next step for you would be the town council anyway, that we are, options available at this point are a favorable recommendation, unfavorable recommendation, or no recommendation to the town council. It would be appropriate for anyone to style a motion for any of those three, and with the caveat that it should reference the findings of fact for approval therein. With no motion pending, I think we have to defer this, correct, Mr. Decker?
I would like to make a favorable recommendation to rezone with finding the facts.
Okay, motion for favorable recommendation referencing the findings of fact by Mr. Valoy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose.
So the vote is 5-1
Yes.
to, in favor or of
5-1 favorable
approving the motion to make a favorable recommendation.
to the town council. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, public hearing on item B, 2024-02 Suncrest Christian Church. The public hearing is now closed. Item C, 2024-07, The Grove, proposed rezone to PUD for proposed mixed-use development of single-family and multifamily homes at 8408 West 101st Avenue. at the intersection of Park Place and 101st Avenue on the north side of 101st Avenue, zoned open space Oldtoff Homes. Mr. Pasco. Good evening.
All right, good evening. Kevin Pasco here with Ed Rechtenwall of Oldtoff Homes, 8051 Wicker Avenue, St. John, Indiana. We're here tonight to seek a favorable recommendation to the Town Council for PUD rezoning for The Grove, our newest residential project. I was last at the May 1st study session to talk about the changes in the lot layout we made in response to comments from the April 17th meeting, as well as to detail our amenities for the project. Generally, I would say that the comments in response to those changes were positive in nature, and we certainly appreciated that. Really, the only comments that came up at the last meeting for us to address pertained to architectural standards we could offer for the project, and I'll detail those shortly. Just for the benefit of the public, I'd like to give an overview of the changes that we've made since we've been in front of the Plan Commission. So, next slide. So this slide shows the changes that were presented at the last meeting, but I'll go through the highlights of all the changes we've made thus far. So we ended up moving units initially that we had west of the ditch to be entirely east of the ditch, which enabled us to form a buffer zone between Renaissance and the Grove. There's also a buffer zone along 101st frontage with the landscape berming running on the east side of Park Place and the detention pond and the trail running west of Park Place. Both of these enabled an amount of separation between the adjacent subdivisions so as not to have the appearance of being right on top of anyone's rear yard. In the process of this editing of the layout, we removed a number of paired cottage units and resized most of the lots on the southern single-family section to be larger. We also added in additional green space and open space on the east and west sides and established a trail crossing over the ditch. We've also been working with the town on the well site in the southwest corner for the last several months, and will continue to do so in the coming months as well. Next slide. So circling back to the comments from the last meeting, we had many internal discussions as well as discussions with staff last week and this week. And so here are the commitments that we are willing to offer at this time. So each home will have a garage door with windows. This is an upgrade from not requiring garage doors to have windows. Each home will have 0.44-inch thickness vinyl siding plus an expanded color offering, which is an upgrade from our standard 0.40-inch thickness vinyl siding with a standard color offering. Each home will have a minimum knee wall of masonry of either stone or brick on the front facade. This is a standard and minimum offering to each home regardless. Selections can be larger than a knee wall, but is dependent on the specific style of the elevation chosen. Each home on a corner lot in the single-family detached section will have at least 2 windows on the rear and side facades. This is an upgrade from not requiring windows on all facades. And then finally, each home which backs up to 101st Avenue will have a rear bump out or offset, and this is an upgrade from not requiring bump outs or offsets. So these changes have been reflected in our most recent PUD development plan as well, and we do believe that these upgrades are comparable to many that were offered for Streamside, and also more on par with our previous Walden Clearing subdivision, and that these comprise a nice middle ground between those two projects. I would also like to stress that each individual homeowner has plenty of optional upgrades that they can select independently for their home, so you may very well end up with plenty of units that exceed the standards that we are offering here. And visually speaking, these homes will not look inferior by any means compared with the surrounding subdivisions. So along with that, we view this project as more of a transitional piece in terms of development in that area, both with the products that we're offering as well as how they are planned with the layout. So having single family detached on the south and west sides, then slowly shifting to the paired cottage section in the northeast corner allows for nearby subdivisions to only see a single family detached lots immediately adjacent to them, or at the very least a landscape buffer. So this, combined with the physical buffers of either existing or proposed landscaping, as well as areas of undisturbed land on all sides, really creates several ways to view the separation between surrounding properties, which we do view as a benefit to adjacent property owners. For the well site, just to give a quick update on that, I checked with Bob on Monday, and we're still continuing to wait for results of the water quality from the test pumping, so there's really still nothing new to report at this time. And then to conclude, we wanted to highlight our frontage improvements that we will be providing to aid in the traffic situation for the development as well as right-of-way dedication for the project. So along our 101st frontage, as I mentioned, we will be installing landscape berms along the rear yards of the 80-foot lots that back up to 101st, as well as a walking path that will run from east to west before turning north along the detention pond. We will also be providing the appropriate improvements to the roadway, such as widening and/or reconstructing as necessary, adding curbing with stormwater infrastructure, and providing an XL decel lane at our entrance. So all of these will contribute to improving the traffic flow and overall quality of the roads along the frontage, and these are all improvements that are required of us in the subdivision control ordinance and mentioned in the town's road impact fee report from 2018. Additionally, we are dedicating right-of-way in the northeast corner for the future Klein Avenue extension project. We're not entirely sure of the timetable on that, but when it does get to that portion of the extension, the right-of-way will be taken care of and ready to go for that. There will also be a large sum of money collected in the form of park and road impact fees for each building permit that is issued for this project. So these funds can then be used by the town for improvements to the existing road and parks inventory as they see fit for the betterment of the town's infrastructure and residents. And just running some quick numbers on that this afternoon, with the total amount of units that we have and the impact fees that are listed on the town's website, we would be generating approximately $566,000 in park impact fees and approximately $1.07 million in road impact fees over the course of the development of this project. So with that, we'd be glad to take any questions or comments that you may have and to open things up to the public.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the panel?
Are you considering a residential TIF?
We've certainly always been open to that since the beginning of this project. That's kind of more of a policy call on the town's part.
Okay.
But we're very willing to participate in that.
I have a question about your architectural commitments. If we could go back to that slide by any chance?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I just have some specific questions about some of the commitments you've made. Specifically the offset. Can you describe how big that offset is? Is it 6 inches? Is it 5 feet? What are we thinking? And I know that we're looking at a master plan, but what kind of offset are we looking at?
Typically, it would be a sunroom or a breakfast nook extension, so those range anywhere from, it's not inches, it's feet. I can't give you the specific footage because it varies, again, as you decide on which option you select. So anywhere from probably 4 feet to, I think our sunroom bump outs are about 10 or 12 feet.
Great, thank you. Additionally, you said that you will be putting some windows in, but I don't see any indication as to what their size is going to be. So, like, what kind of impact will it have on interior light operability, being able to get fresh air in there? So, what are we looking at in terms of that?
So our homes typically have options for windows on the sides of the homes. They are located in spaces that would make the most sense. Stairway wells in certain units. Some of them would be in bedroom areas. So those windows would obviously need to meet standard building codes for egress and things like that. So I think the smallest window you may see on the side of a home is probably a 2x2, maybe in a stairwell location. But there will be varying sizes on the facades.
And by 2x2, you mean like 24 by 24? Okay.
24. Engineering terms to architecture, right?
Sorry, I was an architect, so that's all I have. Thank you.
The only thing I see with this is that we talked about doing the LP siding instead of vinyl, and then also raising the brick higher. A knee wall, I mean, you have the gates literally dead across the street from you. I mean, and a lot of the homes over there are brick, LP siding. It's more of a nicer look. And over there, it is a huge wind tunnel. You get vinyl siding over there, it's gonna blow off. I mean, I'm with the whole thing of let's put LP on houses instead of having houses with 2 different colors because of the vinyl siding. Let's see more brick on them. Let's go to the standards that are right across the street from you that we've been going with pretty good, and having more brick and having LP siding.
From my perspective, I mean, I don't want to interrupt, but we did ask you, 2 weeks ago at the study session to rework some of the architectural commitments and things like that, and I understand those were received early this week, so I would like a little bit more time to digest those, and before we get to the point of being able to have the formal hearing on the PUD at this point, just because that, probably, I think, Kevin, you've mentioned, we're still waiting on
We're waiting on the well results, sure.
and things like that. That was my concern when you guys noticed and wanted to come in for the public hearing, that, you know, I still think it's a work in progress. I'm just not sure if we're there yet, would be my take on it.
I agree.
So,
Mr. Chair, this is set for public hearing this evening, so I would recommend that you open the hearing, and if it's ultimately decided to continue the hearing or hold that open, that decision can be made at the conclusion of the hearing that would be open tonight.
all right, with that, we'll open the public hearing, 2024-07, The Grove, the proposed rezone to PUD for the Olthoff project. Anyone from the public who would like to come up and speak for or against, you're invited to do so.
Hello, my name's Dalton Gambrell. I live at 9630 Lee Place. I currently live in the Grouse Point subdivision just east on 96 Place, I believe it is, on the top right corner of the map there. And me and some of my neighbors have some concerns. We just got probably the first set of plans, and we have a small subdivision there. We do have a park in our subdivision, but not for 300 houses worth of families. And so one of the concerns was that nobody saw a park on the first set of prints that we got. Is there a park on these revised prints? And the other question would be, is because of that Klein extension, that's may or may not ever be happening, but the 96 Place there, when it goes east to west there, are they going to connect this subdivision to our subdivision and in turn having traffic to finish that northeast corner of their new development? And the other final thing would be, I heard him mention something about, the impact to the roads from doing the construction. And I didn't know if there was a limit on what they thought, what areas they would have impact on, because a main travel through, since the Gates was built even, is Blaine Street, which is the street that goes into our subdivision. So we have, concerns about heavy construction traffic on that road alone. We already have a lot of traffic there, so we're just trying to figure out what the plans are and if there's any plans for parks and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carmen Schaefer, 9220 96th Place. I live in the Renaissance, and I'm concerned about the list of PUDs that we are seeing popping up all over St. John. Why are we giving away all of the rights in St. John to developers? We give away everything to the developers now, and nothing is in our control anymore as far as the town of St. John. They're in control. Why are we losing all control and giving it all to the developers? That should not be the way it is. Because once you sign off on a PUD, they've got all the control and you lose it. And why are we cramming so many paired villas, small towns, small homes in such a small area? Isn't St. John's supposed to be mostly R1 developments? Our home values are going to plummet. And I moved to St. John not to have my home value go down. And like I said, I live right next door. I don't want to see this happen. So.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No, tonight, bro. No.
My name is Susan Zajac. I live at 8311 West 101st Avenue. I live just a hop, skip, and a jump east of this proposed development. So when I first saw it, when this first came in the mail, my first concern was that 101st Avenue is a 2-lane road, and how is it going to support all the traffic of this proposed community? That was a big concern of mine because I've lived in my home for 33 years, so I've seen things come in and it's been great, but at some point, is the infrastructure going to support that development? So I was really concerned about a total of 320 units coming in. That's a lot. I guess that was my biggest concern. I'm not really totally against this type of subdivision because I'm 66 and I'll probably be in one soon. But I just really concerned about how the villas on this 60-inch lot, how they're just being all crammed in there. So I was concerned about the quality of homes, how much cramming in there, and the burden to our roads. So thank you.
Thank you.
Doug Blocker, 10591 Juniper Lane. I'm not in favor of this subdivision at all. Many years ago, the town had a vision and decided we're going to create an R2 district with 100-foot wide lots. You ride through some of these older subdivisions and they're beautiful. Nice open spaces between houses and so forth, nothing's crammed in here. Lately, the developers are coming in and saying, we need smaller lots, smaller lots. This developer, for an example, he's giving us smaller lots, and even smaller lots yet. He's got duplex lots where they don't belong there. Man, you'd use duplex lots maybe to buffer single family from commercial or something, or offices, but you just don't throw duplex lots in the center just to give you more density. You look at his density, he's probably at, I'm gonna say 4 units per acre in the buildable area. Yeah, he's got floodplain area. Floodplain's not buildable. So in my opinion, you can't use that as his density calculations because he'll come back and say, oh, I'm probably about 1.8 maybe units per acre. But you know, the density that he's got there is just unreal. You got all around you. You got to the north, single family, to the west, single family, to the south, single family. To the east is vacant property. What I guarantee you, whatever you approve here will be built right next door. I mean, you just look at it. I mean, between there and Klein, what are you going to have? Nothing but duplexes. It's going to continue. Other side of Klein is going to be the exact same thing if this is what you approve. I mean, around you again, you have house values. I'm going to say probably around $700,000 is probably to the northwest and south of you. They're probably proposing 300 to 500,000 is going to be their range. I think you should look at architectural standards. I should say no vinyl siding at all. I think LP siding, your hardy board siding, more brick in the front. I would even look at saying, let's do 7-12 pitch roofs, concrete driveways, add those in there. As far as improvements go, he's given, I heard him say tonight that, yeah, now he's going to be nice and they're going to give the dedicated right-of-way for Klein Avenue. In my opinion, he should be paying for his half of the right-of-way of Klein Avenue for that roadway when that goes in. That should be coming out of his cost. He should also be installing a public sidewalk across that frontage and probably an oversized water main so that someday that can connect to the 293rd and to 101st. In my opinion, it would probably be up to the town design when they do Klein Avenue, but I think there should be also be a left turn lane installed there. On 101st, there should be a left turn lane installed. He should be installing curb and gutter across the entire frontage from the east property line to his west property line. That means he's going to have to extend that road and probably extend that culvert. There should be a sidewalk, again, across the public right-of-way for both Klein and for 101st Avenue. Again, he's got to cross that ditch. That sidewalk should also be the width of the sidewalks that's to the west, which I think is 8 foot. There's a gap there, but if you look along 101st on the north side there, it's all, I believe, is 8 foot. He's saying that he's going to provide a landscape buffer. Well, let's see a detailed landscape plan. I'm assuming it's going to be, this buffer will be on a separate outlot that's going to be owned and maintained by the association. It's not going to be part of somebody's backyard that they can no longer use, but let the association maintain it. Let's see a plan that's going to show that he's asking to provide a screen and buffer from those roadways. I'm sure you're going to get a plan, and you probably tell them double the landscaping already. Let's see a landscape plan that's going to show parkway trees. Have them spaced every 40, 50 feet. Have them shown on there, 5 or 6 different types of trees that would be planted. Let's see the retention area. Have them do the wetland plantings along the shoreline to prevent erosion. Have them put shade trees all the way around the detention ponds, maybe spaced 100 foot. Let's upgrade the subdivision. The pathways that he's talking in there, I'm assuming will be owned and maintained through when they go through the subdivision, be owned and maintained by the association. They should still be designed to the town standards for a bike path. I think it's important that you look at saying that we need better quality development. I think the town board members, when they all ran, the new town board members, when they all ran, said that we're in favor of quality development, not quantity. I think here you have the quantity. I don't think you have the quality. And I just want to remind you, there was a previous plan commission member that said that he loved PUDs because they could then require developers to put in covenants to regulate what's going to be built. Well, the town doesn't enforce PUDs. The developer does. And the developer could change them anytime he wants. And therefore, whatever you want done to this project, make sure it's in your PUD ordinance or annexation agreement. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Hi there. Julie Solomon, 9665 Marquette, in the Renaissance. So I'm where the floodplain is. And so one of my questions is, as they develop this outlot area, how is it going to address not making the floodplain worse? We have a lot of collecting water that's continues to build as more homes are built. Phase 4 is Renaissance. And then as they add this land and the grading and raise it, is it going to make it worse? So I just would ask that that be addressed. I second what everyone has said about traffic. I'm concerned about traffic, 2-lane road, maintaining it. I do understand that there's some turn lanes being installed, but how are we going to potentially expand this road so it's bigger than 2 lanes? I'm concerned with turning in and out of the gates, Renaissance, whatnot. And then also, when we do this outlot west of the ditch, is there a buffer zone to designate where that ends so that they're not coming into the neighboring subdivision of Renaissance? So those are my main concerns with it, and thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Barbara Lloyd. I'm at 10164 Upper Peninsula Place. I'm concerned about water, and I know that we have a water issue. Come summertime, when we bought water from Schererville, and this was years ago, all these new homes, you also had the preserve where you had a bunch of homes put in. What new well do we have? Do we have additional water coming in from where? I'm very concerned about the water. The other thing is that our roads, we know they're bad. Why do we keep building before the roads are comparable to accept something like this? Let the roads come in and maybe we can think about it, but I don't think we should be building when we don't have our roads that are gonna be adequate. They're not adequate now, when this goes through, do you think it's gonna be any better? It's gonna be worse. We have to start thinking about what we have today before we start thinking about what we have tomorrow. You can't be building all the time, not having enough water, not thinking about the roads that are now not adequate, and putting more traffic on it. You can't do that. What are you guys thinking?
Doug Blocker, 10591 Juniper Lane. I forgot to make one couple of comments. One is, in my opinion, the minimum lot size in a subdivision should be 80-foot wide by 150 feet deep. Should have 30-foot front yard, rear yards, 10-foot side yards. And the other thing I want to say is, I don't think anybody knows when Klein Avenue is going to go through. It could be 4 or 5 years. I think they have a 5-year phase plan. My recommendation would be to allow phase 1, 2, and 3 be built at this time with their entrance off 101st. Phase 4 and 5 not be built until Klein Avenue gets installed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harold Monken, 8443 Larkspur. Just 2 points. Gentleman spoke about the siding. We went from 40 thousandths to 44 thousandths, roughly the thickness of a sheet of paper. Just so long everybody's clear on that point. We're talking 4 sheets thicker than a 1/32 of an inch. Not quarter inch, not eighth inch, not wood, but very thin. Secondly, everybody's talking about traffic. All we are is shifting it now from 231 over to 101st, which I believe is owned by the town, not the state. Am I correct? So that now becomes a burden on the town, not the state anymore. We can't push it off. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? I do have several written comments that will be read into the record. I'll go ahead and take care of that now. Oh. I got lots of reading to do here, so I got lots of reading to do here. I was trying to get to it.
John Schaefer, 14290 West 94th Avenue. Just a question for the developer. As far as the infrastructure, water and sewer, does the developer plan to pay for that entirely, or is he looking from funds from the city as a reimbursement for that project? And also that includes the well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Anybody else who'd like to come up?
Kevin Cole on 10652 Manor Drive. I'm on the other side of town. But I thought this would be an interesting point to bring up, too. What about another fire department? What about police protection? Can I go on and on? And water is a big concern. And I was already talking about, I think water is going to be a big concern. So you better think about that, too. They need to think about that, too. I think we're at, St. John's becoming to the point where it's, I think, so many permits should only be allowed per year. Raise your hand, raise your hand. Look, over 50% of the people think that we're starting to max out here in St. John. There comes to a time when you have to really think about that. I think they should be proposed in one of the next meetings and that. Think about that. Think about, you represent us. We put you there in some shape or form. So going forward, I know you're all new, fairly new, think about that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Yes.
My name is Martha Clemish, and I would like something being done with the microphones so that people could hear. I know that I am elderly, but that is not the reason I cannot hear. These are terrible. Okay, please do something about them. So are yours.
Thank you. I'll move my microphone closer. Hopefully that'll help. With that, there are several written comments that I will need to read into the record. The first is a letter dated May 15th, 2024 from Mrs. Vanessa Knutson, 11745 West 105th Street, St. John, Indiana. It's regarding the proposed rezoning to PUD of the proposed residential developments in St. John, referring...
Talking too fast.
Sorry, I do that. Referring to this project, please. The letter reads, please refuse the rezoning requests from the above developers. Keep St. John primarily a place to raise young families and primarily R1 single-family homes with nice-sized lots, preferably a third of an acre or larger. There is already plenty of PUD housing in St. John and nearby towns. Historically, back in the mid-1990s, St. John residents were asking that town council for no more than 25% non-R1 types of residential housing to include all its variations such as joined homes, townhomes, row houses, cottage homes, villas, and the like. I have been informally told by a town official that he estimates St. John currently has about 33% non-R1 types of homes. Thus, St. John should not allow any more non-R1 homes until we again reach only about 25% or 1/4 of total residences as non-R1 housing. St. John is a farm town quickly transitioning to a far south suburban town. It offers many fine amenities such as above average to highly rated public and private schools, many fine new or updated parks, biking and walking trails, and a growing number of town, child, and family-oriented recreational programs. Many young families move here from more crowded and or less family-friendly areas to find a good place to raise children. Certainly 30 years ago, we moved from Dalton, Illinois for those reasons, and we're pleased to raise our children in beautiful, spacious St. John. These proposed PUDs will likely not age well as most R1 single-family homes because, number one, historically PUD-style residences do not go up in value as fast as most R1 standalone true single-family homes, and as PUD houses age, there is a risk that an ineffective or financially strained HOA might not able to keep up with the repairs. Thus, some PUD homes might be harder to resell. Number two, as a former insurance inspector of mainly multifamily housing, I saw that some PUDs 30 to 50 years old were not always managed well. Some showed slight deterioration, some showed serious deterioration. Underwriters thus saw them as a higher risk. Keep St. John filled with green spaces. Keep St. John child and family friendly. Keep St. John free of large areas of semi-urban, densely packed housing. Thank you. Next is a letter dated March 1st, 2024 from Stephen Miss, M-I-S, 9817 Tall Grass Trail, St. John, Indiana. It's attention to Mr. Gomestagel. You want to read it? No, I'm just kidding. Dear Mr. Gomestagel, we are in receipt of a legal notice of public hearing for the variances for the above cited property. Right, this is a BZA letter.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Okay. We can disregard it. That's a BZA letter. It is yours.
That's mine.
It is yours. It doesn't, it's not relevant to this project. It's for a different board. Next is a letter dated May 13th, 2024, addressed to the Town of St. John Building and Planning. It is from Steve and Julie Salmon, 9665 Marquette Place. It is several pages. There's some pictures in there that I'm not going to really be able to capture, but we'll have to make sure that those are entered into the record. The letter reads as follows. Hello, St. John Building and Planning Commission members. Our names are Steve and Julie Salmon, and we live at 9665 Marquette Place, St. John, Indiana, in the Renaissance subdivision. We were alerted to the public comment session on May 15, 2024 via a certified letter from Olthoff Homes, the developer. We are unable to attend the public comment session on May 15, 2024 due to a school band concert. We would like to formally submit written comments for your consideration as it relates to the proposed rezone from open space to PUD at 8408 West 101st Avenue, St. John, Indiana, at the intersection of Park Place and 101st Avenue on the north side of 101st Avenue. The development is referred to as The Grove. Our comments are specific to the plan presented at the May 1, 2024 Planning Commission meeting and not that of the plan sent to us via certified letter, as the letter contained an older proposal. Note, we received the plan on the left and we are commenting on the plan on the right, which includes a proposed 303 dwellings. Buffer between Renaissance and the Grove. We applaud the Planning Commission and the developer for recognizing the importance of a buffer zone between Renaissance and the Grove. We noted that the green space west of the ditch is designated as open space or an outlot which will not contain residential or commercial buildings. We would like to better understand how residents of the Grove will have a clear understanding of the end of this property versus Renaissance property on the outlot. There are buffer zones planned along roads with the use of trees and other plants, and we are wondering if something similar to this is planned on the outlot. Again, this is to clearly designate where the open space ends and Renaissance begins for future residents. There's then cited two different articles of the requirement, PUD requirements for the town of St. John in the code. And then the next subheading, floodplain west of the ditch. Below, we're including an image from DNR Indiana Floodplain Information Portal 2.0. There is a floodplain zone west of the ditch in the proposed outlot, which does not have any specific plan at this time. We have noted during the development of Phase 4 of Renaissance over the past years that the water collecting in the field within this floodplain zone has increased due to drainage from the new homes. We would like to know how the grading and changing of the outlot south of this floodplain will impact the water collection in this area and what steps can be taken to avoid impacting homes bordering the floodplain/outlot. Next, projected density and traffic congestion. We understand from the building commissioner that traffic studies have traditionally been used at major roadways to identify the need for a traffic light. We would ask that a new consideration be made for the use of a traffic study to ensure that this new development with 303 dwellings, along with other developments along 101st Avenue, will abide with the Town of St. John PUD code, which states existing and proposed streets are suitable and adequate to carry anticipated traffic within the proposed district in the vicinity of the proposed district. We are most concerned with the increase in traffic and the ability to exit out of existing subdivisions, as well as the number of kids crossing 101st Avenue that is already busy and about to get busier. What steps will be taken to modify 101st Avenue to not adversely affect the properties adjacent to the plan? Are there plans to widen 101st Avenue and or add turn lanes? The St. John Code also note that properties adjacent to the unit plan shall not be adversely affected, end quote. With single-family homes likely comes more kids attending Lake Central schools. We already have a lot of traffic at 8:30 a.m. and 3:45 p.m. with kids coming and going to school. The traffic is likely to increase in Renaissance, as this could be considered the main way to get kids to Clark Middle School beyond the use of buses. Has this been considered when determining the appropriate number of dwellings in the Grove? Nature and wetlands streams. Per the National Wetlands Inventory website, there are wetlands in the surrounding areas that will be impacted by the current proposal. See below for a map of this found on the National Wetlands Inventory. The St. John Code state that rezoning to PUD requires the Planning Committee to consider the surrounding natural features. What steps will be taken to protect and preserve the natural features in this area per the St. John Town Code? We also have two bald eagles that are commonly seen in the ditch trees. We are not looking to stop progress in St. John. We instead would like to ensure that this proposed PUD is aligned with the town development goals of maintaining high quality of life and quiet residential neighborhood, being thoughtful in managing future residential development, and maintaining a predominantly single-family residential community. We appreciate your time and consideration for these comments. Sincerely, Steve and Julie Salmon. Next is a letter from Craig Sandifer. There's no address identified other than Renaissance Rosegate. Letter reads as follows. Hello, Town of St. John Building and Planning. This is regarding, it's to the attention of Olthoff Homes petition to rezone. My first comment is why. I moved to St. John in 2016 because of the tranquil peace. All I've witnessed is the town allowing land-grabbing residential developers to build. Debris flies everywhere because no one is holding them accountable for waste. Constant noise pollution and dirty roads. How will developing this property into residential housing benefit the town other than a tax-sharing agreement with other government? Do you think the people employed to build these homes live in St. John? Doubtful. No employment recruitment benefit either. Adding municipality services are already stressed. Hearing of funding problems with first responder departments now, scary. What next? Our town does not have the road infrastructure to keep accommodating new residences. The beautiful wildlife that still frequents the area is being driven out. Is the goal to become a concrete jungle? It's working. Why isn't this property being considered for a landmark unique to the area, state, community development to attract business? Look at a community like Carmel, Indiana. Connect the dots. The median income is now well over $100,000 and increasing. People have money in this town, but nowhere to spend it unless we travel outside for restaurants and shopping. Crown Point, Cherville, etc. get the revenue. Entertainment revenue the town keeps forfeiting. Makes no sense. Suggestion: recruit private equity to develop this land into something awesome. A Spanish-style indoor bodega, small kiosks, businesses, much like a food truck village, but indoor for year-round entertainment. There is nothing close to this around. Preserve parks of the land to continue maintaining nature with nature trails. Tie in everything with sidewalks, so desperately needed, and golf cart lanes for easy access. Think creatively. Lastly, Olthoff homes are cookie cutter spec that drive property values down. The request to build on this land The request to build on this land appears to be for even lower income housing. The houses around this land are custom built. I do not want this to happen, but I am sure the decision is already made. If that is the case, then allow a builder like Steiner to develop this property. Nice high-end housing. Again, Craig Sandifer. The last one that I have to read into the record is from Chuck Hansen, 9889 Garden Way, St. John, Indiana. Reads as follows. I would like to make the following comments regarding C-2024-07, the Grove development. 1. High-density development. I am concerned with the density of this proposed mixed-use development and feel it should be R1 zoning. This development as planned will add a high volume of additional traffic on 101st Avenue with the sole entrance/exit on this road that is already heavily used. The Plan Commission should require the developer to include an entrance/exit access from the north, either with the extension of Klein Avenue or at a minimum connecting it to West 96th Place. Number 2, plan use of west property area. What is the developer's long-term plan for the property west of the ditch line, and how will it be maintained? Again, that's Chuck Hansen, 9889 Garden Way. Those are the written comments that were submitted in advance. With that, is there anybody else from the public who'd like to come up and comment? Going once. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to apologize for this ahead of time. Not a public speaker. I thought someone was going to speak about our problem by us. I just moved here a year and a half ago. I love Indiana. I love where I am. I live in Cedar Lake in the Mill Creek subdivision off of Parish, right? Yep. And 231. Just found out that another homes are going to be built off of 231 close to Parish, and something about a commercial.
Ma'am?
231 is
Ma'am,
a pit road.
I'm sorry. So that's coming up next.
Oh.
This is for the questions. So
I apologize.
No, it's okay. So the
Okay, I
petitioner
thought
can
you
answer
were
them.
through.
We just want to make sure you're with the right, your comments are, we're going to
Yes.
get there.
Basically, it's road.
I promise, I promise we'll get there. I just need to make sure that we're speaking on the project as before. So any other public comment on 2024-07 The Grove? Just get your name and address, please.
I'm going to throw one in. I'm Rick Thomas, 10705 Manor Drive in St. John. And this comment goes for all of these PUD requests. If St. John has an ordinance that limits non-R1 developments at 25%, all of this is moot. We need to live within those ordinances. And if it's R1, if Althoff is not capable of building an R1 house, there's a problem. Build it to the code. If you can't charge $100,000 more to make it R1, that's a problem. That's it. Thanks.
Any other public comment, 2024-07 The Grove? I don't know if she was coming up. All right, going once for public comment. Second call for any public comment. And third and final call for any public comment. With that, public comment for the hearing will be closed. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come back up.
All right, well, we'll do our best to get through that long list of concerns that were brought up here. So in terms of park space that's being offered, that came up a few times. Again, we have two park areas that we're offering. One that is in the paired cottage section. We added a pickleball court as well as a sidewalk connection with some landscaping on there and expanded that detention area. And then we also dedicated probably about half of that area west of the creek to be both a dog park on the north portion there and then a playground area with a few pieces, as well as a sidewalk or a path connection across the ditch there. And then we also have a walking trail that runs along the entire frontage on 101st, snakes its way along the detention area and the ditch on the west, and then runs along the northern detention area as well, and then connects in near where that right-of-way is dedicated for Klein Avenue. So that, again, that also plays into our frontage improvements that we are offering on 101st in terms of sidewalk. And then, as I mentioned in my initial presentation today, that we will be providing the XLD cell lane on 101st. We will do curb and gutter with proper stormwater infrastructure installed in there, as well as any maintenance or repairs that are required along that frontage on 101st. In terms of spacing, I did create a chart to illustrate how these houses are not simply just right on top of each other. So, for instance, on the 60-foot lots, we have a 7-foot side yard setback per side, or 14 feet total per side. Our product width has a maximum of 45 feet. There's a range between 40 feet to 45 feet. So the total, after you have the largest model on there with the side yard setbacks, is 7.5 feet in either side, or 15 feet total. For single family, and if we just take a 75-foot lot, for example, again, 7-foot side yard setback, 14 feet total between each side. We have a 52-foot max for the building envelope for that, and those range between 38 feet to 52 feet. You end up with 4.5 feet on either side if you go with that 52-foot envelope, or you end up with 23 feet total on either side if you had two of the exact same floor plans on consecutive lots. Now, with the anti-monotony language that we have included in our PUD development plan, that would not be allowable to have two of the same floor plan on consecutive lots. So you would end up with more space between each unit throughout the entire development. Someone had brought up driveways being concrete instead of asphalt. We do that regularly. We offer concrete driveways for that, as well as sidewalks along the frontage for that as well.
It's standard.
Yeah,
sorry.
standard.
It's standard. Concrete sidewalks.
Yes.
No, it's standard.
Yes, concrete drives throughout the entire development is a standard offering.
Excuse me, can we just I did allow the members of the public to come up and talk. It's their turn to respond, so if we could just limit the comments, I would appreciate it.
There were comments on, in terms of what kind of landscape plans we have. So as part of the PUD requirements, we have to submit a preliminary landscape plan, which we have done. It's been in staff's hands for several months now, probably since January or early February. And that does show what we intended to do throughout the entire development. Again, on a high level, it will be more detailed once we get to the final landscape plans. But it did include street trees in the right-of-way, as well as around the detention areas and on that west side. Now, obviously, that again, that will get in more specifics once we get to the final plan and we have everything set in stone, but we're not at that point yet. The pathway that we will be constructing throughout will be an 8-foot paved walking path, which again lines up with other comparable paths in other developments in town. Let's see. For the question on plantings on the west side, we would most likely have some sort of a landscape buffer along at least a portion of the rear yards that back up to Renaissance. There is a detention area there which offers its own buffer itself, so we obviously won't be doing anything on there, and that already has separation between those lots and their rear yards and the west side of our property. And then also with the plantings and trees that are already along the ditch line, we have no intention of altering those by any means either. As was also mentioned, it's in a wetland area, so we don't intend to impact any of that. So that would just stay as is. For water, we've been told numerous times on a staff level that there is not a water capacity shortage. Whatever agreement that exists between the town and Schererville in terms of capacity is just fine. And obviously with this new well site, if it goes through, then that will only expand the available capacity for the town as well. And then the last thing I'll touch on before I turn it over to Ed for any other comments is that we have been in regular contact with Lake Central just to let them know of this new project and the fact that there will be some sort of an increase of the student population as a result of this development. And we've been assured that they do have capacity to take on additional students. They will be going through a redistricting, I believe, next year, in addition to graduating their largest classes this year and next year. So that will be freeing up space at all of their elementary, middle, and high school.
I'll just go ahead and try to touch base on some of the technical comments as it relates to maybe the floodplain and drainage and buffering along Renaissance and things like that. So our intention is not to touch any floodplain that we don't have to. If we do have to impact a floodplain, there's many different agencies we have to reach out to get permits to do that. So this plan would have to go to IDNR, FEMA, all these different agencies, plus be reviewed by the town engineer for drainage conformance. So any impacts to those floodplains are going to be vetted heavily by those agencies. Specifically on the west side of the ditch, I believe it was brought up about that finger of floodplain there. Our intention is not to impact that at all. When we do our open space on that west side, obviously we'll have to do some grading work in there, and that grading work will hopefully only benefit the Renaissance community by allowing the sheet drain and flow to get down towards the ditch and eliminate any kind of pockets or standing water that's there. Separation between ourselves and Renaissance, again, we originally had that west side lotted out with 80-foot wide lots. We removed all those lots to, again, provide separation from that community and try to create our own feel for our own community. We're more than willing to plant a landscape buffer along that edge just to provide a more physical barrier for individuals so that they recognize that that is in fact the boundary between the communities. And that is something that we've done quite often with buffering and landscape buffers and plantings and things like that. As far as road improvements, I think there were some comments on road improvements. Obviously, we're going to meet the town standards with all the road improvements that are required of us. Same thing with the water and sanitary installs. Those are all developer paid and installed at that time. And I think that is all that I kind of had on my list. I'd be happy to try to address anything else that kind of popped up there during the comment period.
Thank you, gentlemen. Questions, comments from the panel?
And it's not so much towards the guys here from Altoff, but I was hoping that John can give us a little bit of clarity on R1 and R2. It seems that, there's a misconception of what the difference is between R1 and R2. John, could you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, so a standard R1 lot is, by our zoning ordinance, required to be 100 by 200 feet, 100 feet wide at the building line, 200 feet deep for 20,000 square feet of lot. And an R2 lot is 100 wide at the building line by 150 for 15,000 square feet. If something is zoned R1 or R2, the only real input the town can have when somebody goes to build a house on there with a permit is that there's minimum square footages that we require, and that's 1,900 for a single story, 2,250 square feet for a story and a half, and 2,400 square feet for a two-story. Other than that, there's no requirement on an R1 or R2 lot for any brick, any windows in a garage door, any concrete driveway or anything. So with the PUD ordinance here, that would, once the ordinance was signed into effect, if the PUD were approved, that would give the town the ability at the time of permitting to verify that. And the other thing is the bump outs on the back that they are offering along 101st, that there's no requirement for any bump outs on an R1 house. And Altoff's done an R1 subdivision in town, and there are some homes in there with no brick, and the town was not able to enforce them to put any brick on there because the R1 does not call out the need for any brick or any exterior finishes like they're offering in the PUD.
Thank you, John.
Let them build R1 and R2 then.
So the public comments closed right now. Thank you.
Questions, comments on the panels? Anyone else? Okay. With that,
I do have a, I'm sorry.
Don't ask me.
No, I'm entangling with that, and I'm glad you brought up the R1 and R2s. What is your purpose of not putting R1s or R2s and try to have a PUD?
On this particular project,
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
on this particular project, we're proposing the PUD zoning ordinance because of the uniqueness of the site. We do have a lot of wetland, a lot of floodplain, and the PUD ordinance sometimes are put in place to allow us to work with those natural features and still have usable space and things like that. So that's why we chose PUD in this particular case, also to get the mixture of product availability that we thought fit well within and also matched the comprehensive plan's requirements for a variety of housing styles. That seemed to make the most sense to bring this through as a PUD.
and as you know, with the PUD, we're kind of letting you write your own zoning ordinance though too, right? The PUD ordinance allows for you to propose things. It's incumbent on us to review that and make determinations about whether that's how it should proceed, correct?
We would agree with that, yes.
Correct. And I think that there's a lot, as you've heard from the comments tonight, there's a lot of moving parts with this though too, right? As far as traffic, you guys did address the schools. There's concerns about public safety. There's roads. There's a lot of things, and I appreciate the willingness that you've had to work with us. And because you guys did retool a little bit as far as some of the density issues, but I was trying to prepare that it's coming up again though too, right? That it's a lot of units jammed in there, and I think from my perspective, I think we're still kind of a work in progress, but I'll defer to anybody else how they want to proceed as far as any sort of motion at this point as to a recommendation of the town council or otherwise. Again, with the options, I'll just lay it out there. The options are a favorable recommendation to the town council and an unfavorable recommendation. We can proceed with no recommendation, Those are the options we have.
We can also make a motion to defer and leave the public hearing open, correct?
But yes, Mr. Valoy, if you wish to allow the hearing to continue to the next meeting and defer, that's an option today.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion to defer by Mr. Valoy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Russ. Any further comments, questions?
Just to clarify the motion, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure, is the hearing intended to be held open to the next
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Correct, that the hearing would be held open and there would not be a recommendation to the town council
Okay.
at this point.
Thank you.
So we have a first, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor of deferring, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Item D, 2024-11, the White Oak subdivision, proposed rezone from R1, single-family residential, to RC2, PUD, single-family residential conservation planned unit development. The parcels in the northwest quadrant of the intersection of White Oak and 109th Avenue. The development not exceeding 116 single-family residential units on approximately 40 acres. LBL Development, Mr. Kill.
Good evening. I basically going to echo the same presentation that was made at the study session. This particular project would be located at the northwest corner of White Oak and 109th. As you indicated that on the agenda, it is the same theoretical density as R2, except it's RC2. Every zoning around this parcel of property is the same zoning. So if you do the math, 116 units on approximately 40 acres is not dense at all. We are aware of the requirements, and I am intimately aware of what's going on at White Oak and 109th, and what would be required on White Oak, and dedication of right-of-way, and accel lanes, decel, for subdivision process and things like that. So these would all be single-family homes, should they be built. It's a fairly standard, straightforward. We're aware of all the requirements that would need to be adhered to. We understand the roadway improvements. We know that the town is looking to build or construct a traffic circle at 109th and White Oak to aid in the, obviously the movement of vehicles. That roadway is fairly crowded in the morning and in the evenings. So, but we're talking a max of 116 units, and it would most likely not even come close to hitting that due to all of the right-of-way that would need to be dedicated to, the various road projects and construction and things like that. But it would all just be, right now, planned just single-family homes.
On the diagram we're looking at, what do those lot sizes look like?
That was a plan from 4 years ago that was approved, 4 or 5 years ago. Well, I'm thinking, I believe 4. That was the original concept plan. As you can see, we didn't plan on, at that point, mitigating any of the wetlands and all of that, but that could be done. Just depends on if we want to undertake that or not. But that plan has approximately 87 units on it, meaning single-family homes. And all we're asking is a maximum of 116, and like I said, likely we would never get to that number.
Okay. Any questions, comments from the panel? You are here for a public hearing, so first, if the commission, any commission members have any questions, comments, things to address?
Just push down.
Okay, with that like I said, because you are here for a hearing, we're going to go ahead and open it up for public comment for item D, 2024-11, the White Oak subdivision, the proposed rezone from R1 to RC2. I hear the microphones are working better now, so that's good. Again, members of the public who'd like to come up, feel free to do so. Just please state your name and address for the record.
Doug Blocker, 10591 Juniper Lane. I'm not against the use, single family. I'm totally against the plan. I mean, he's got a plan up there with, I think, 55, 60-foot wide lots. And I think he said there's maybe 87 units, but he wants approval for 117. He can't even give you a plan that shows what he wants to build. Again, in my opinion, single family, minimum of 80-foot wide lots, 150-foot deep. Let's put some architectural standards on here. Again, he wants a PUD. No vinyl siding, 712 roof pitches, concrete driveways. What about the road improvements? Oh, yeah, he's going to maybe dedicate enough property for the roundabout. What about the left turn lanes for his entrances? What about curb and gutter across his frontage on both White Oak and 109th? Where's the public sidewalk going to be? Again, across the entire frontage of both White Oak and 109th. Maybe you might want to look at maybe a bike path, though, since there is a bike path further north. What about a landscape plan? Where's this landscape plan? Again, there's going to be a buffer between the back of the lots and the roadways, so that there is a screening. Again, it should be on a separate lot, not part of the lots. Are any of these lots have floodplain on the property? If so, get the floodplain off the lots. Detention ponds, how are they going to be landscaped? Let's have some shade trees, 100 foot totally around it. Let's have the banks all wetlands, so it stabilizes the banks and you don't erode all the time. Do we want to have maybe a walking path through the open space area? Again, let's look at a less dense development and higher standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi again, Karen Smith, 8595 Larkspur Lane. So just listening to these other people, I concur with, you guys are the new board from when I met before. You guys have a responsibility to all of us that live here. All these planned unit developments is scary. I came in for one thing today, and then there's like these three other things. What the old board has learned from what happened in the gates of St. John with John Lawton and what happened with all of that, and we have those barracks up there now, you've got to be careful. You really do, because I just read this, I wasn't even going to talk about this, but change it from R1 to RC2, I think that means he can have more houses. But we are already overcrowded. That 231, like everyone says, you've heard it, it's beating a dead horse, but I don't know what we can do. You guys don't own it, the state owns it, but it's scary out there. So my friend, he almost got killed. His car got totaled at Parish and 231, waiting to cross that light. We don't even have all these people here yet. So please, you guys are it right now. You are our people. We are here to tell you, you guys are the ones who have to protect St. John. We moved here because we love the country, we don't want Concreteville. We don't want Cementville. We want the country. And so with all these 3, C, D, and E, more PUDs, wow. So it's up to you guys. So please, please, please help us save our town.
Carmen Schaefer, 9220 96th Place. Who do you work for? I mean, she's back on I'm kind of backing on her, but I hope that you guys don't have a conflict of interest with your vote. you know, when, again, I go back to the PUD, St. John is growing way too fast, and our infrastructure is not keeping up. I came to talk about the Grove and White Oak, and then I'm seeing all these PUDs on here that I wasn't expecting to see. I'm like, holy, this is not good. Again, we're giving away our rights as a town, and that's not good. We shouldn't be doing that. I mean, the Shops of St. John, that's a PUD. I mean, we gave that away, and what did we get in return? We got a car wash, we got an eyeglass shop, and we got an investment shop, and a Wendy's. That's the high-end stuff we were supposed to get. I know that's not your fault. You guys are new. But that's what we got in return for a PUD. You guys have no control over a PUD if we give this away. Please don't give this away. I moved here to St. John, and I'm a fifth-generation St. John resident. I did not bring my family to St. John for concrete. I brought my family here for the hometown feel, for the beautiful St. John that I knew as a kid. And this isn't it. Please, you guys are the ones that protect us from the developers. And you guys can control that. And I'm begging you to please protect us. You guys are St. John residents. Don't you want that for your families? Thank you.
Good evening, Rich Lago, 10822 Millard Drive. I actually live fourth house off that corner. And shame on me for not knowing that there's a traffic circle going in at 109th and White Oak. I didn't know that. Did you know that, Rick? Right. So here's a great idea. Let's defer that RC2 until that traffic circle's put in and keep the lot size the same as on the east side of White Oak Avenue. That's it.
Hi, Karen Cole, 10652 Manor Drive. I'm one of the bigger lots. I've been a resident for 25 years. I moved here from Illinois to raise my family. Love it here. Would never plan on going anywhere. October of 22, my home burned down. I rebuilt it, moved in it right before last Christmas. When I came to rebuild, the old council hit me with a $10,000 permit fee. Charged me with fees I paid originally when I built my home. Got zapped with almost a $3,000 fee for a Lawton transmission line for the gates of St. John, which I don't even live in. But I had to pay it if I wanted to rebuild my home. Now I've got another planned unit development coming next to me that's going to affect where I live by the ice arena. No, it can't happen. There's too much being changed in St. John from what was here originally and what it's turning into. I don't have a problem with progress, but this is change that's not helping the residents. It's hurting us. It cost my husband and I monies out of our pocket on top of our insurance, which we had an excellent policy. I had a great company. I had my builder, who was my builder originally, came out of retirement and rebuilt my home. It cost me $550,000 to rebuild my house in the same lot that I was in. Now, why can't Altough build a house for people that want to live here as an R1? That's what I did. And anything that was up and above what I didn't have prior to in my quad to build a ranch, We took care of ourselves. But I want to stay here. And that was the price we decided to dig into our pockets for to stay in St. John, because that's how much we like it here. And that's where we want to stay. That's where we want our grandkids to be. But I can't justify staying with all these what I consider a prefab home. It's not a stick-built home. I'm not even saying custom, but they're not. They're just cookie cutter. And they're not quality, and it will hurt the value of everybody else's home around them. At some point, it will start hurting them. Thank you. Please take that into consideration. One more thing. Sorry. When the fire happened, I learned a valuable lesson, that a lot of our fire and police, more so the fire, are not full-time. They are part-time paid employees and volunteer. We need to fix that. My home had one salvageable wall left by the time it was put out. One wall could be salvaged. The whole house had to be torn down, foundation had to be pulled out, because they just couldn't get there fast enough. They tried their best. It was a 4-alarm fire. Lake Hills, Cedar Lake, even Illinois fire departments came. It's just, we just don't have enough infrastructure. It's not just roads, it's all of it. It's all of it. We really have to pay attention. If there's too many residents, we can't save everybody. We just can't save what the life is valuable, more so than the property. And I'm understanding it's happening more and more. There's all kinds of things that are happening to people's homes, and we've got to pay attention. Thank you.
How you guys doing tonight? I'm sorry, 10561 Mercer Street is my address. Are all of you
Could we get your name, sir?
Jeff Martin.
Thank you.
Are all of you St. John residents? Raise your hand. Okay. So you've heard all of our concerns tonight about our town. Do you compromise with us? Do you understand how we are feeling about things that are happening around here? Because if you compromise with us, you will do things to lead in our direction and help us. If you don't compromise with us, we will know the outcome. I love St. John. I've been here for 11 years. Our family's been here for 11 years. We have our in-laws that moved here 5 years ago. I love this town. But we have a lot of concerns. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said because it's the same thing that I was going to say. Please listen to our voices tonight. Thank you.
You don't move too fast when your knees are plastic, sorry. Hi, my name's David Goggins, Goggans, 10607 Millard Drive. These guys, it's all about money. We're all about the town, where we live, you guys too. You could cut that in half, and they're gonna make their money. I say leave it R1 or bigger. You wanna build $1 million home? You're still gonna make money, they're gonna make money. That's what it's all about. Our schools, Hanover schools can't take anymore. I didn't hear nobody say anything about another referendum or they're gonna help the schools out, you know? So I'm not gonna beat a dead horse over roads and this and that, because you guys all know it. You guys are out there driving too. Bottom line, they're gonna make their money. If they don't get this, they'll move on down the road somewhere else and get it. But R1 is all they need. And in fact, the bigger the lot, the better. The preserve is a perfect example of that. Everything in there sells. Why do we need this? And there's a wetland there too. There's like a pond or something up in there. So thank you very much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Come on up, I also have some to read, so, but go ahead.
Craig Zaremko, 10869 Edgewood Court. I would be on the south, I would just be on the back corner of that. So where the, I guess where their what retention would be. Either way, maybe we should hit the pause button and just let things play out what we have. We got a new development that's going on across the street. So anyone that's coming out of, onto 231 that's looking to make their way to work, we're waiting forever just to get through. We've talked about the infrastructure. We need to take a good look at that once these houses come up, and what can we do? Because before we know it, the horse is going to be out of the barn, it's going to be too late. And we're not going to be sitting here having these conversations. They're going to be more heated, and everyone's going to be so upset, and then we're going to have everyone wanting to get out of town. And they're going to get out of town on a loss. And then you're going to have people fed up. You know, my daughter wrote a letter because she couldn't make it. And I would just rather submit it than read it, if that's all right.
Well, you can read it or I'll have to, but go ahead.
I'd rather you read it. There's nothing bad in there. She's 12. But she sees it. We all see it. And we just want everyone to notice what's going on, and let's just take a breather. That's all I got.
Once again, John Schaefer, 14290 West 94th Avenue. Same question regarding infrastructure. Wondering if the developer, this is a Lawton development, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So I was wondering if the developer plans on putting all the infrastructure in at his cost, including water and sewer and whatever it takes, and not put that burden onto the residents of the town of St. John. I think we've had some previous track records with this developer. I'm sure that we all know. If not, we need to look at that. And as a previous developer that was up here, he never really did answer that question. He just said that they would be putting it in, didn't ask if there was going to be requested funds from the town of St. John. If there is, the town cannot keep affording these developments like that. We're spending way too much paying for the infrastructure to be put in. Once the infrastructure is in, yes, we can accept it, but we shouldn't have to pay for it up front. And we shouldn't have to pay for it afterwards. We'll maintain it, but we shouldn't have to pay for it to be put in. That's all part of the cost of the lot. Developer, if he needs to raise the lot, he needs to raise the lot cost. The other question I have, is there a conflict of interest by who is presenting tonight and members of the board? I don't know if there's a relationship there or not. If there is, I think that needs to be that needs to be open and made public. Thank you.
I didn't realize this was a Lawton development, but I do have a question. Was there a lawsuit for this development before then with Lawton, and he lost this lawsuit to rezone this? Am I correct?
Here 5 or 6 years ago.
Was it that long ago? Okay, all right. I was just wondering, because I thought there was like a time frame that he had to wait a certain time to rezone it. So then my question is there a conflict of interest on the Plan Commission with Lawton? No? Okay, just wanted to know.
Do you think they'd tell you?
No, they wouldn't tell me.
That's a new board, that's why.
Well, that's it then. If there's a new board, then there'd be
We
potential.
were bringing up questions about the board.
Yeah.
So we have questions, what legal standing do we have?
Does anybody else want to come up and speak?
They would recuse themselves from a vote if there's a.
Harold Mungan, 8443 Larkspur. Everybody understands infrastructure. I was with Joe in 1988 when Joe was over here with me, arguing the same problems back in 1988. That's when I first moved to St. John. I moved to Dyer because of a work job. We moved back to St. John because of traffic. We were hoping it would be better out here and less stoplights. We're going the opposite direction once again. Thank you, Joe.
Hi, I'm Diane Bennett, and my address is 10841 Edgewood Court. I live in the lower left-hand corner of that map, and I have beautiful trees behind me, and I love it. And originally, I came here thinking, I'm coming there to save the view I have, the trees I have. But after hearing everybody, I've learned quite a bit tonight. It's a tough spot for you guys to be in. I also came to St. John in 2017. I love this town. It's beautiful. I'm all for growth because I want other people to enjoy this town too, but we have to be careful about how that growth plays out. Are we keeping nature? Are we keeping places for kids to go play? Are they able to navigate through the town safely? The traffic is horrendous on 109th. 231 going towards 41, and I think something like this is just going to compound that. We just had the streets improved a little bit on the way to Midwest, and now those would be in jeopardy again. That's a very busy area for kids and families. And then just water, I know, is a concern. I don't want to repeat everything everybody else has said, but at this point, I would be against something like this for now. As Mr. Z back there said, can we put a pause on this for a while and really rethink what that corner should be about? You've got that roundabout coming in, which I did not know about either, so that was good. I learned a lot tonight. But if we could put a pause and hold off, I think that would be great. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Karen Smith again, 8595 Larkspur. I didn't realize this is the John Lawton thing. So just for other people, pardon? So September 4th, 2005, John Lawton came to the town and he presented a plan for the gates of St. John. And so they agreed, he gave a great story. It's wonderful, right? Now we learn from 2005, not so good because I'm with Suncrest and different things. PUD, they can make their own rules. We gotta stop with that. There was, like you said, there was a 5-year lawsuit on this sewer system. 2018, 2019, there was something going on. 2021, second lawsuit, they compensated, and they gave them those 3-story row houses by my house where I'm in the 55 and older community. And I call them whatever I call them, I can't even remember right now. Barracks, I do call them the barracks, yeah, I call them the barracks. So, and thankfully, in December of 2024, the recapture fee that John Lawton is going to get from St. John is going to end. So John Lawton, great businessman for himself in September 4th, 2005. Great businessman for himself. Not a great businessman for the town of St. John. And so this is what we are dealing with now. So just listening to these people, I'm learning more and more. I just came for number 2. But you, again, you guys are it. We put all of our faith in you guys because you guys are the only ones that can help us save our houses.
Anyone else for public comment? I do have some to read in as well.
Richard Thomas, again, 10705 Manor Drive. We already mentioned, we've been here before. We've shut down this development before because of what it is, because of what it is not. Now, you said that the lot sizes are commensurate with other developments around it. Take a look right there. Going across White Oak Avenue, those are lots in the White Oak subdivision. There is no, it's not even close, the lot sizes in this new development. Not even close. And the corner of this property, we affectionately call Lake St. John, because it's flooded all the time. It's standing water. The farmer who had it couldn't plant on it, not in that corner because of standing water. So what's he going to do for drainage? He said the schools have, well, it might have been Altoff, said that the schools have said they've got room for the students coming in. Go to a school board meeting. I did. The school boards are in arms complaining about all these new developments, and they can't handle the students. They cannot accommodate all these students coming in. So go to the school boards and find out. The traffic from Palmyra Golf Course east all the way to 41, that's how far the traffic's backed up. It's backed up past Lincoln School all the way to Palmyra Golf Course, and it takes about 5 or 6 cycles of the stoplight just to get to 41. And there's no other way to go. Same thing. And another thing, I know what you did on the last vote, but when you vote on this, realize that a no vote or a continuance is supporting the developer. It's not supporting us.
Anyone else who'd like to come up?
Bruce Peterson, 10653 Millard Drive. I moved here in 2015. I was still working, about the end of my career. And I was drawn to this town because of the hometown feel that I had as a kid in another village at the time. I moved here respecting the people, all these residents that have 20 to 30 years living in this town. In just the amount of time that I've been here, I've seen an immense amount of change. I live behind Kevin and Karen, and I watched their house burn. Poor guys in the back had a hard time getting water to the hose to fight the fire from the back. I was contemplating to get all my hoses out of the shed that were put away for the season and my water shut off to help these guys out. You need to start thinking about fire protection in here and police, where you're bringing all these people in here. I didn't build a new home. I came in here, and I'm not trying to disrupt. I'm just a quiet bird looking. I thought this was going to be my retirement town. Now I'm not so sure. Thank you.
Any other members of the public that would like to come up? Okay. I do have something to read into the record as well. First is a signed letter from Douglas Hastings, Silverleaf Subdivision 13375, Hillcrest Lane, Dyer, Indiana 46311, to the St. John Building and Planning Commission. It reads as follows. As a 12-year resident in the Silverleaf Subdivision, I've watched the expansion of St. John with interest and support. I was a lifelong resident of Illinois, but was drawn to Indiana because of its more conservative atmosphere and the gem that St. John is. I've watched the vast expansion of housing developments and the building of new homes as a sign of positive growth. But, as acknowledged last year at the public meeting about the various traffic snarls caused by inadequate road capacity, Calumet Avenue, 109th, etc., the housing expansion has far exceeded the need for infrastructure upgrades. To approve yet another housing development that borders 109th Avenue, in addition to the streamside development already in the works, would only make the current challenges worse. On any given day on 109th Avenue, anytime after 2 p.m., the eastbound traffic often backs up past the stoplight at the intersection of the grade school. With Exchange, Calumet Avenue, 109th being one of the only corridors other than Route 30 from Illinois to Crown Point and beyond, The traffic coming from those who work in Illinois but live in Indiana is only going to continue to grow. An infrastructure plan that doesn't address these extreme issues is the very near term. It isn't the right plan. Waiting years for these problems to be addressed will only present more of these dilemmas where we want to see St. John expand but can't support the expansion. The alternative is to just keep approving and show less respect for those residents who have moved here, are counting on our elected officials to manage the town well, and are loyal to the community. I would strongly encourage the Building and Planning Commission to deny the rezoning of this current farmland until the infrastructure is addressed and upgraded. Sincerely, Doug Hastings. Next is a letter dated April 29, 2024 from Michael and Janice Natty. Address 10762 Millard Drive, St. John, Indiana 46373. Letter reads as follows. Gentlemen and ladies of the Plan Commission, we are writing to express our remonstrance against LBL Development LLC's proposed zoning change from R1 to RC2 PUD for the northwest quadrant of White Oak and 109th Avenue intersection. This change will negatively impact the area in the following ways. Decrease our home values, increase the traffic that exists today on White Oak. The impact of 80 or so homes on a 40-acre space will increase the level of services that the town will need to provide, including fire, ambulance, and maintenance, along with a significant impact on the school system. This development will decrease the amount of green space we enjoy today, a respite from the once open space that St. John was to this overabundance of homes. We realize that the developer owns the land, and this petition is to increase his profitability by placing duplex homes instead of single-family dwellings. Therefore, the request of the current residents of White Oak Manor will most likely not be heard. This letter is in opposition to what is proposed. Thank you for your time and consideration of our request, and please reject the request accordingly. Sincerely, Michael and Janice Natty. Next is a letter from Guy Sebastian, town resident, 10717 Millard Drive, dated May 12, 2024, regarding zoning change petition from LBL Development. There are numbered paragraphs. Number 1, infrastructure is not designed to support this density on the property in question. White Oak Avenue is already taking too much traffic. Number 2, the zoning change requested by the developer does not create any necessity for the town to change the zoning plan. Number 3, the current zoning designation R1 is suitable for development and developer can work within these guidelines. Number 4, R1 development mirrors and supports the values of other properties in the area. Number 5, this supports the overall quality development of the town, sustaining property values and the character of this area of the town. Signed, Guy Sebastian. Next is a letter dated May 12, 2024 from Peter and Tony Van Drunen, town residents of 10716 Millard Drive. Again, it's regarding the zoning change petition from LBL Development. Numbered paragraphs are as follows. 1, infrastructure is not designed to support this density on that property, with White Oak Avenue already taking too much traffic. Number 2, developer desired change does not create any necessity for the town to change the zoning plan. Number 3, current zoning designation is suitable for development and developer can work within these guidelines. Number 4, R1 development mirrors and supports the values of other properties in the area. Number 5, this supports the overall quality development of the town, sustaining property values and the character of this area of the town. Signed, Peter and Tony Van Drunen. Last is a similar letter from Carl and Patty DeLang, town residents at 10704 Millard Drive, dated May 12, 2024, regarding zoning change petition from LBL Development. Paragraph number 1, infrastructure is not designed to support this density on that property, with White Oak Avenue already taking too much traffic. Number 2, developer desired change does not create any necessity for the town to change the zoning plan. Paragraph number 3, current zoning designation is suitable for development and developer can work within these guidelines. Paragraph 4, R1 development mirrors and supports the values of other properties in this area. Paragraph 5, this supports the overall quality development of the town, sustaining property values and the character of this area of town. Signed, Carl and Patty DeLang. And the last is a letter that the gentleman provided to me. It's from Riley. I'll read it as follows. The outdoors has so much more than houses. There has been so much building lately which isn't good. All these houses have been taking away animals' homes. Have you noticed all the dead animals lately on the roads? It's because of houses. If we keep building, this leads to animals losing their homes and ending up dead. More and more houses getting built means more dead animals. I think we shouldn't build more houses and instead plant more crops and plants for the animals. At least every day I see 5+ dead animals every single day when it is very devastating. I have been back over and noticed so many animals, especially deer. I want to have less crowding in our schools, stores, and traffic. There is already a subdivision getting built and we don't need more. This is why I strongly believe we should keep it open land. That's what I have as far as written remonstrations. I will invite any members of the public who haven't already come up to do so. First call. And I'll make a second call for any public comment. And with that, I will make a third and final call for any public comment. Nobody coming forward. Public comment on 2024-11, the White Oak subdivision, is now closed. And with that, Mr. Kill, if you'd like to come back up.
Having listened to all the comments, I guess I didn't really plan on getting into a 3-decade history lesson tonight, and I hope I really don't have to, but I've been here since 1974. So I grew up in St. John. I'm not a stranger to this town by any means. Obviously, everybody kind of up here kind of knows that. As far as infrastructure goes, water, there's 2 wells under construction right now. They each have the capability of at least 1,000 gallons a minute, and at our pumping capacity and our pressure, that's about 2 million gallons a day. So the water infrastructure, we can put that one to bed, is being taken care of. There's numerous fracture trace analysis that have been done around the community. So every time a new development comes in, it is known to the town whether that contains a well site that is worth test pumping or not. So those are explored all the time. And the town is very diligent about that. The Schererville wastewater treatment plant has plenty of sewer capacity, so that is not an issue. The town, in a couple years, probably will buy another 10% of that capacity, but it's already existing capacity. And the agreement between Schererville and St. John dates back to the 60s, and the EPA mandated the 2 towns are married. So as far as the roadways go, 231, the issue with traffic has always been in St. John, not from St. John. It's everybody driving through St. John to get to Illinois and back and forth. So that's been, and if you look at the traffic studies, we have traffic studies to back everything up I'm saying. So, and the town has the studies. If anybody wants to review the studies, you will see that there are peak times that this traffic hits. And it is when everybody's going to work in the morning, when they're coming home in the evening. That's the peak times. So the upgrade of certain intersections is what the traffic engineer had recommended, i.e. the proposed White Oak and 109th upgrade. So when we get to the next petition, I will be happy to talk about Parrish, Klein, 231, everything, what the state's doing, what NDOT's doing. So I guess we can do that on the next petition. And just so everybody knows, and I heard it a couple times tonight, and I am not sure where it's coming from, there is no conflict of interest, and quite frankly, I'm shocked that I would actually hear that, because there is no conflict of interest. Most of these gentlemen are brand new. There is none. So let's just put that to bed right now, and that's really, really not fair for anybody to say, because that couldn't be farther from the truth. So I just want to go on record and make sure everybody is aware of this right now. So that's not the fact. And I never said the lot sizes were the same. I said the zoning was the same as surrounding. Every single subdivision around there is either zoned R2, a PUD, RC2, the preserve. If the question was asked, that is not an R1 subdivision. It's a PUD. Everybody like the preserve, right? So, to my point, that's not R1. So everybody says R1, R1, R1. That's not the case. Very, very, very few developments in this town since 1996, I want to say, have been done as an R1 subdivision. Almost none. So just a little, very few, I said. Not everyone, very few. So, Mr.
If we can just, the public comment is
I
closed.
said, very few, but the vast majority have not. So, I don't want to really get in a history lesson tonight, but the zoning that's being requested is basically RC2, Residential Conservation 2, meaning an R2. So, that requires that you can put the same density in as a normal R2, meaning there's 43,560 square foot per acre. Take that times 40 acres, do the math, divide it by, and then you can get the number of units. So when the request tonight is 116 units, that is the theoretical density of R2, only this is RC2. So we'd have to adhere to that same density, i.e. the request that's being made does not exceed R2 density. That is the whole point of that section of the zoning ordinance. That's why it was written, and I was here when it was done. So I remember the point of it and the purpose of it, and that was the point of it, just so everybody understands why that zoning district exists. And this is not for the Plan Commission's benefit mostly. This is kind of mostly for the audience, so they have an understanding of how things evolved and, where we're at now. So that being said, the request tonight is the equivalent of R2, but it's Residential Conservation District Zoning, RC2. That's the simple request. This development is not planned right now to take place in anytime in the near future. That's not in the planning. This is simply zoning. We would have to come back in front of the Plan Commission for all the subdivision requirements. That's when detention issues are looked at. That's when roadways are looked at, accel lanes, decel lanes, everything. That is completely understood. So everybody's concern about that still has yet to come. And so, but that being said, we don't have any immediate plans for developing the subdivision right now. This is simply a zone change request. So as far as the infrastructure goes, all of the zoning, surrounding zonings, the water, the sewer, all that stuff, I kind of hope that maybe helps just a little bit. I mean, even if it helps going forward for everybody else, because everybody else has the same concerns that have been raised for 30 years that I've listened to. I've heard it for 30 years. And every new development, the development next to it, everybody's mad that those people actually get to move into town. So it's kind of cyclical, and it does happen with every new development. And I understand the people's concerns. I get where they're coming from. They left certain places to come to St. John. But everything that's developed in St. John, we have the highest median income in Lake County. We have the highest median home values here. We have the highest owner-occupied housing units here. I mean, we're leading the county in almost every category. I mean, how much better are you going to do? You're leading in almost every single category, including we won an award one time for most boring place to live. I don't know if that's good or not, but that can not be good. But as far as commercial goes, that's what the second petition is going to be for commercial development, to get some of those amenities in town that all the residents claim. Everybody says we always have to leave the community. We always have to leave town to eat. Well, the next proposal is hopefully going to help that situation too. But as far as this goes, that's what the request is. So, sorry to take up everybody's time, but maybe it helps. I don't know.
Thank you. Any questions, additional comments from the panel?
I do. And yes, I do know Steve, and we do not work together, so I have no problem asking these questions. Steve, I mean, if you're coming in asking for an R2 PUD, what is the problem with leaving it on an R2 conservational?
I mean, the RC, I guess there is not a problem from my perspective.
Okay.
I have no problem with the ordinance that's proposed, and we can drop the PUD, but the RC2 zoning with the maximum number of lots, if that was what were approved tonight, or recommended, I should say, the town council, the PUD could be dropped. Yeah, but the RC2 is what we're really requesting, the residential conservation, the same density, you know, and the number of units not to exceed that many units, so.
60-foot lots. Hold on, public comments, and we're asking our questions.
So, to your point, Bill, I guess, the RC2 zoning with a maximum number of 116 lots, if that were what was recommended, I guess the PUD is
able
we
to
could consider, yeah. You could
consider it
send,
off.
I mean, that recommendation could be sent to the town council.
And as far as, and I see the 116 single-family residential lots, you're telling us here that this isn't what's planned, this is from 4 years ago.
This is from several years ago.
Right.
This is not, a new subdivision has not been drawn yet, but it can only be a max of 116. Now, that being said, that's without being designed, without all the right-of-ways being donated, things of that nature that impact the actual size of the property. And that's experienced by everybody. Every developer has that same experience because they are required to do those things, and that's understood.
And I know there was a couple of comments about roads, coming in, coming out, water and sewer. You're not looking for anything, obviously, moving forward from the town?
Well, and you know what, I'm sorry, Bill, I should have addressed that as well. I mean, there is a misconception that the town puts in infrastructure and new developments. That's simply not the case, so everybody knows that. Every developer must pay and put in their own infrastructure. So the only things that the towns do is a main transmission main from St. John to Sherrville, or a main truck, but as far as the infrastructure goes in the roads, that is paid for solely by the developer in each respective development. So the town does not pay for that. There are no costs to the town. They do collect a lot of permit fees from the developments, i.e. building permits. There's developmental fees that are paid. There's things like that, but just so everybody knows, the infrastructure is not paid for by the town, is not.
So moving forward, if this goes, and obviously not as a PUD, but if this moves forward, we're okay to know that that's not the design that you're going to present at our next.
Yeah, I'm not even sure why that's up on the board, because I did not submit that with my application packet. If I wanted it on the board, I would have submitted it, but I saw it up there, so.
Right.
I mean, it is public record, but I was hoping, that's not what we intend on building, and so I didn't want to really show anything that wasn't intent on being built to give everybody the wrong idea.
And I know I can see, but what's the R2? Excuse me, we're asking questions. What is the R2 measurements?
100 by 150.
150, right?
But RC2 allows you to build that same, it's based on density, Bill. So it would be smaller lots, same density, so 116 units, just smaller lots. 70, 80, whatever the number worked out to.
Mr. Chair, I think I should just make a point. In our zoning ordinance, there is no RC2 district separate from a PUD. Our zoning ordinance has an RC2 PUD and an RC1 PUD. There's no separate district called RC1 or RC2. So I don't know that you can remove a PUD from an RC or residential conservation district. So I think that point needs to be clarified.
Yeah, but I guess to get to, Adam, thank you, Adam, by the way, but I guess to Billy's point, the things that we had just discussed, the number of units, RC2, whether that PUD designation is on there or not, that commitment stands. The reservation, the residential conservation, maximum number of units, not that plan, that commitment stands. So that wouldn't, that designation for our purposes here really doesn't change what we would, how we would proceed if we proceeded. Let's put it that way. There's no immediate plans to even do anything here, just go for zoning now. So
Would you commit, I mean, public comments closed, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, I gave everybody multiple chances to come up, so I do appreciate that everybody wants to speak up, but that portion is closed. Would you consider just a straight rezone to R2 at this point? That's just a straight zone. What I'm asking about is just a straight zone change.
Justin, I'm sorry, we did not request R2 for the simple reason that we're not going to be able to get 100 by 150-foot lots in there, but I can get less than 116 units on 40 acres, which is a very, it's not a dense subdivision by any means. But the reason that there was not made a straight request of R2 is because we do need slightly smaller lots to reach that same density with all the things that are going to be going on around us. That's why the request was not made.
Any other questions, comments anybody has?
I reinforce the comments that came up from the general public. I do. They are concerned, and I think they need to be well informed about it, what's going on. But that's all I have to say. I do like what the comments came out from the general public. I appreciate them coming out like this. I do. You make our jobs a lot easier. I do. I appreciate your civic responsibility to speaking up. The unfortunate part about it is that you only come in segments. I wish you could be here more often at every meeting. Please attend.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the panel? If not, I think.
Just my own.
Sorry.
And that is, I do have some concern with going forward with saying RC2, but with the removal of a PUD, because as our attorney just said, I don't think the ordinance actually allows such a thing. So I think that's something that we'd have to figure out.
Well, given what Adam said, you can't do it. It has to be a zoning district that is in the zoning ordinance. So based upon what Adam said, I understand the request, but based upon what Adam said, that's simply not an option for the Plan Commission. That isn't even lawful. You have to zone it to a zone that's actually designated in the zoning ordinance. That's why, but that being said, the PUD designation doesn't change what the presentation would be.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, if I may. What Mr. Keel said, the zoning can become PUD without any reference to a zoning classification in our zoning ordinance. So I think, again, there needs to be clarification. The property can be rezoned to RC2 PUD, which is a zoning classification in the ordinance. If the application were to seek simple PUD, which would be similar to what Olthoff has requested. They did not make a request to RC1 PUD or RC2 PUD. They just requested a PUD. And as part of the process for the review of the development plan associated with the planned unit development, all of those details, all of those regulations, all of those restrictions regarding architectural styles, regarding landscaping, regarding lighting, that's all done in the development of the plan. Ultimately is submitted as an ordinance to be considered by the town council. So just to clarify that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did not do that because we intend no mixed-use zoning. We wanted to, I guess the RC2 PUD zoning, that request is in there so everybody knows it's single-family. There's no duplex, the request is for nothing but single-family homes. And I guess people feel more comfortable with that request because it gives you kind of an underlying zoning district. I mean, the PUD zoning is great when you have a bunch of mixed uses. Then there's really no underlying zoning district, but we thought that it would make people feel more comfortable that they knew the request was, basically R2, which would be all single-family detached homes in this case. That's kind of why it's there.
Okay.
Questions, comments from the panel? Yes, we are, is the answer. All right, with that, I think at this point in the hearing, ultimately, this is the town council's decision, obviously. Would entertain a motion for, again, the options are a favorable recommendation to the town council, unfavorable, or no recommendation. And any motion should be styled to reference the findings of fact.
I'm sorry, so just, so no more than 116 units on these 40 acres?
Yes, the commitment and the ordinance the town council would consider would be a maximum of 116.
Without lot size.
So I'll make another call for, anybody who'd like to present a motion for a favorable recommendation, an unfavorable recommendation, or no recommendation to the town council?
I'll make a recommendation for no recommendation, or motion for no recommendation. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, we have no recommendation to the town council.
I second that. All right, motion by Mr. Valoy for a no recommendation to the town council, seconded by Mr. Gomstagel. Is there any further comments, question, discussion on the motion itself? There being none, all in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I believe it carried 6-0. And with that, the public hearing on 2024-11, the White Oak subdivision, is now closed. Item E, 2024-12, the Gates of St. John, units 29, 30, and 31, proposed rezone from C2 Highway Commercial District to PUD Planned Unit Development of units 29, 30, and 31, parcels in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of US 231 and Parish Avenue for development of a commercial and residential subdivision on approximately 36 acres. LBL Development, Mr. Kill. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could just keep the chatter to a minimum, I'd like to get through this, please. Thank you.
Ashley, do you have the drawing, the actual drawing? There you go. Okay, this project right here is a request for a true PUD, a true planned unit development. It includes a residential and a commercial component to the project. It's bordered on the west by Parish, on the east by Park Place, and on the north by 109th Avenue or US 231, depending on what everybody calls it. The plan contains 210 units of residential housing, as well as approximately 130 square foot of retail space. So there will be, you can see the units are two-story units. There's a maximum of 8 units per building on the ones that run east and west. The 2 that run north and south, those would be 9. There is at least 20 feet between every building. There are sidewalks around the entire development, residential and through the commercial. Through the middle of the project, it doesn't look like it, but all those lines are parking stalls on the north and the south side of the road. So you have 10 by 20 parking stalls. Most parking right now for commercial is 9 by 18, In St. John, as we all know, everybody drives an SUV, and everybody that would go there, so they drive big cars. So they need the 10 by 20 spots. So that road, to give you an idea of the width, you have 20-foot parking stall, which is from that wall to me, a 12-foot lane, another 12-foot lane, and then another 20-foot parking stall. So that is the equivalent construction of over a 4-lane roadway. The whole point in that is that for the commercial, we are looking to develop something that resembles a downtown for St. John. We've never had one here. We've tried to get it forever, and it has all the outside seating. It's going to be designed for that. That road will be constructed in phases as it's approved, so that road goes in automatic. Now, the other unique feature about the commercial is we are giving the town council complete use and architectural control of the commercial. So everything that everybody has always wanted for the town, we're doing. They get to choose what the businesses are. They get to choose if they're a restaurant, whatever it is. They get to choose what the buildings look like. The town council has control, total control. And any use that goes there, whether we would recommend it or the town brings it in, the town council must approve everything that goes there. They have 100% say, and it's written into the documents, it will be signed, and that's kind of what we saw as a really big benefit. There has never been a commercial developer, and I've dealt with them for almost 35 years. Nobody has ever done that. We're proposing to do that. It is the true chance the town has to create something their own. So they get to pick what the buildings look like, they get to pick what's there, restaurants, outdoor seating, lighting, whatever it is, the town council gets to choose. So that's what we're envisioning there. The traffic circle on Parish, we know that NDOT, the State Highway Department, is going to let that project in 2025. We do know that it is supposed to be under construction in 2026. Klein, obviously, we're hoping that gets done first. We just dropped, for purposes of this drawing, we simply dropped a roundabout at Park Place because originally, back in 2004, when we met with NDOT, that was supposed to be a traffic signal. The State Highway Department refused to let them build it. Absolutely refused. Would not let the signal be built. The State Highway Department, unless you meet the aspects of their Uniform Traffic Control Manual, meaning the number of cars, the accident data, all of their requirements, they will not reconstruct the roads. That's just the policy of the state, and that's what we all live with. I can tell you that that roundabout there at Parish, we just saw the plans. And the town, I think the town probably has seen them at one point or another as well. Very nice roundabout. They are shifting that roundabout to the southeast a little bit. There is a taking that will be done on the property, this property right here, to accommodate the construction of that roundabout. We'll hook our sidewalk system into it. Like I said, site plan approval, town council, everything gets up to the town here. So the phasing of the project does not run lineal, meaning it doesn't run east and west, the phasing runs in blocks. So as a block of residential is approved, a block of commercial is approved with it. A block of residential, a block of commercial, block of residential, block of commercial. We do know that there will be requirements of NDOT of us on 231. If you see there, those are 3 entrances on 231 that are right in, right out. Those will certainly require an XL-decel lane. So what that in essence means, because there's proposed 3 of them, it in essence means there is almost going to be a complete another lane on 231. Because you could go in and out, in and out, in and out, but it's easier just to do another lane. And again, that's what our best guess is based on other projects we're doing on state highways. I can tell you, I know what they're going to require. So again, that is going to be dictated by the state highway department, not us. Not necessarily the town, but NDOT's going to go ahead and dictate that.
You're not going to put a stoplight at Park Place then?
Sir, public comment's not open yet.
The
You can just let him
state,
finish.
the state highway department has not allowed us to put a stoplight there. Has not allowed the town, did not allow the developer to do it back in 2005 when he was willing to do it, and paid for it, basically. NDOT said no. They refused to even let the developer do it. It didn't even cost anybody a dime, and they said no. So right now, it's going to be NDOT's responsibility, although I'm sure they're going to ask for some participation from, the development community, the town. They may do that, but we dropped a traffic circle in there because it doesn't make any sense that they would be constructing traffic circles at Parrish and Klein and then put a signal at at Park Place. I'm guessing they're going to do a circle there. That right there is our best guess, based upon what they're currently doing on 231. So it does make sense to assume that that's either going to be a signal or a traffic circle. We're assuming traffic circle to match what else is going on the roadway there. So as far as 231 goes, like I said, we're going to be making improvements all around this development here. I think that the fact that we are subordinating the project to the town, where the town council has total control, if they want a coffee house there, they get a coffee house. They want certain restaurants there, they want certain restaurants. It's entirely up to the town. So we are subordinating the project to the town council. And they would, in essence, what would happen, let's say that we came in and we plan on moving from east to west on this project. We would have to get a use. The user or the business would, or the developer, us, would go in, see Bill and say, here's what it is. Does the town council approve this use? We would have to come to the plan commission with an approval from the town before we even came to you guys to construct anything. We would do a site plan, we'd do a building, we'd have to have architecture, we'd have to have everything, because they have architectural and use control over the commercial. So that, and well, I'll let Mr. Rohr talk about that. I did have a meeting with the association president of Mill Creek. Very nice meeting, 2 hours. Went through a lot of the stuff that I just explained that is going on here. So if anybody has any questions, I know that's kind of a lot to take in a short amount of time. Be happy to answer them right now.
Any questions, comments from the panel?
Technically, Adam, Mr. Adam, separating the two together right here in the planning commission, the PUD, that the town will not be in charge of what kind of restrictions they may have on this type of building, or whatever they're going to have. Is that possible? I mean, this is kind of technical.
Mr. Chair, yes, I think Mr. Kill would agree that this is very unusual. In fact, in my 30 years of practicing law, I've never seen an application
We could get our hands burned.
like this, where
Yeah.
the developer is suggesting that the town, through its town council, will have total control over the selection of not only the building materials, I think the architectural style, which might be more manageable, but also the uses and the types of uses, or, and when I say that, I say that because I do have concerns about whether that can be implemented without subjecting the town to potential risks of users who might be denied, and not there being no standard by which their proposed use could be considered. And when I say that, I mean this. So currently, our zoning ordinance, the town's zoning ordinance, has a schedule of uses. It's online, it's available for anybody to access, and the schedule of uses basically identifies what types of uses are allowed or permitted in each different zoning district.
Right.
So, for example, with regard to the the Route 231 overlay district, there are certain allowed uses, financial institutions, You know, there are different types of uses, hotels and motels. And so those provide standards by which the town may consider any particular use in a zoning district. Now, if it's PUD, then it takes the zoning ordinance and, basically doesn't use the zoning classifications. And so then all of those standards have to be included in the ordinance itself, in the ordinance that changes the zoning from whatever it is currently to planned unit development, because that's really how that's going to be enforced in the future. But even if that were included, if the terms that Mr. Keel proposed, where the town council somehow could have, I guess, absolute authority on what types of uses are going to be implemented or used for the development, I find it very difficult that the town council would even, I can't speak for the town council, but it would be very difficult to implement that. And I think there's a risk that if it denies a particular owner or tenant a use that it seeks simply because it doesn't like them, or there's no standard by which that use can be measured, which currently those standards are set forth in the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance is very thorough in terms of considering the different types of uses that are allowed or prohibited in any given zoning district in the town. So I do have some concerns with the concept.
Well, and Joe, I will admit that what Adam said, is this unprecedented?
Yeah, that's.
Absolutely. Somebody's got to, but and I agree.
Question.
Yes.
I have a question. If you agree with what he just said and what I'm thinking too, could you have that all in writing so that perhaps we could make some kind of sound decision, because it's gonna come through us, and then we could actually be talking to the town council and say, this is what they're proposing, get your attorneys to work together on this, because we're walking into an unknown territory that we could get lawsuits up the yang-yang if that happens.
Well, what we did, we actually have that included in the packet. There's a group, there's PUD guidelines, there's zoning commitments, there's where everybody's signature is signed and notarized. And all that we ever hear here is, all they want is another bank, here's another nail salon, here's this. We're providing a chance now to pick restaurants, outdoor dining, the things the town and the things the people want. Frankly, I want those too, but Joe, has this been done before? In my 35 years, and Adam and I met each other basically when we were young, and we didn't have gray hair and had hair, but anyway, he's right. I don't work with Adam, but he's absolutely, this is unprecedented. It doesn't mean it's illegal.
No, I'm not.
And so that's why we're hoping that the plan commission, hey, you know what, town council? If this is what you guys want to do, the town attorney would ultimately have to review this. And there's another legal layer,
Our decision, it's quite complex, not more than what I thought it would be.
Well, just to chime in, again, nothing's done without legal counsel.
Right.
And we've seen it in the past where a smoke shop wanted to come into, into the 41 overlay district, and that was a scheduled use. They could have came in there, and they said no. So I think the town council, and obviously with the blessing of the legal, has final say. I think that's basically what is a win-win for everyone.
Well, and you know what, Joe?
My opinion.
And you know what, Joe, what may make you feel more comfortable, and actually, Madam, you may not know this at all either, what may make you feel more comfortable is that Mr. Lawton's not going to sell this property. The only way that we can effectuate this agreement with the town is if he maintains control of it. So he's not allowed to build it there unless it's a cooperative effort is the point. He can't just sell it to somebody, and that opens a concern like, I think that's where you were kind of going with it. So the developer will maintain ownership of it, but it's unusable unless there's a cooperation and the town council approves the use in the buildings. And that's kind of like the partnership we're trying to create. And again, this would go to the town attorney, obviously, and town council review this, but this is truly something that, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna say I've ever done this before, because I've never seen a a commercial developer ever willing to relinquish control of their project. They simply won't do it. And we are proposing for the commercial portion of this project to build that cooperation, that cooperative effort, and that's why you see a roadway unlike anything that's been constructed in this town. You see parking, I mean, that's one thing that every downtown does not have. You go to Sherrville, go to Crown Point, go anywhere, and I've obviously been to them all, the one thing they are severely lacking is parking. You look at this plan, there are more parking spots than anybody could ever want here. You could utilize these from this road, there's parking on the front of the building towards 231, and hundreds of parking spots to accommodate. I mean, let's face it, if your patrons can't get to your businesses, what good is it? If they can't park there, or, you know, in this case, it's walkable for everybody that lives there, so.
I have no questions to what you're selling us on that part, but I'm just having questions on that PUD and having the town council, all that stuff, because that's uncharted. It's a territory that it's going to become a little bit more complex than what an easy approval or, you know, favorable.
The good news, Joe, is you just have to make a recommendation. The town council actually has to legally review it.
I want to make sure I review this whole thing before I make.
But again, we just didn't jump into this without, you know, at least presenting this idea to the town. And, you know, Bill has talked through it. We presented this to the town, to Bill, because why were we going to present something and everybody's like, wow, that's never been done before, but we like the idea. And so we're trying to embark on that now.
So you presented this to the town council. When was this?
It hasn't been, no, it's been presented to staff, like when you come in and do a staff meeting and stuff.
Okay, so I'm.
I mean, every developer comes in and does staff meetings. Ashley will be doing them now that she's here.
The town council through me.
Okay.
Right.
So- Okay.
So just in staff meetings, Joe, like you would normally do for any project, yeah. And then Bill's like, wow, this is, you know, it's.
It sounds good, but anything that looks good, sometimes you get a stomach feeling, you know,
Well,
an easy
that's
feeling.
that's why I'm sure this will go through legal review, there's no question, and, but I mean, that's all you ever hear. This is what you want to do, why do this? The town does lose its control. Now the town has total control, and we're getting pushback. So if the town has no control, you get pushback,
You're getting questioned.
No, I understand, but I hear behind me.
So
Yeah.
you're talking to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not pushback from you guys, no. It's just, it's funny that you hear different things, but it is a new concept, yes.
All right. Do we have further questions, comments from the panel?
No.
If not, at this point, because it is noticed for a public hearing, I think I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. So we'll open the public comment section for 2024-12, the Gates of St. John, units 29, 30, and 31. And we'll go from there. Mr. Rohr, I do have the written submission that you had. So you're here. Usually I read in things for people who aren't here. I'll defer. Do you want to talk and then I read, or you want me to read and then you talk? And
It's a lot to read. So if you give me one more time.
Hey, this is my last one for
I know,
today,
it's
though,
thick,
so,
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to knock it out. Well, however you want to proceed. Go ahead.
But I'll try and move as quick as possible, given the complexity and what time it is. My name's Matthew Rohr. I live at 11069 Hickory Grove Road in Mill Creek. I'm the president of the Mill Creek Master and the Mill Creek Signature Series HOAs. You've got the letter we submitted, and hope the other board members, we got it to you last week so you could see it ahead of time. That represents a summary of conversations that we had with our residents. We have a Facebook page, which is open up with comments, and also discussions among the HOA officers. So that's a consolidation of ideas, not just one person's. I did have an opportunity to meet with Steve Kill and Ashley Abernathy from the town board this week, Monday, to have further conversation, because there's a lot about this we don't know. I appreciated the willingness to meet. Ashley conducted a great meeting, very professional, and we had a very candid and complete conversation, which is the nice way of saying we didn't agree on everything. But I felt very good about the quality of the conversation. The fundamental commercial element of this, in general, and I will say my association, we have a broad range of opinion, there's 244 homeowners. But in general, people are okay with the commercial part of this. This was Zone C2, they expected some kind of commercial development on that way. there's still a lot of questions, but in general, we're okay with that. The big issue is the 210 residential units in this dense configuration here. Okay, and we've heard about the issues on 231. The town did a corridor, study in 2023. Parrish and Klein and 231 are two of the most dangerous intersections in Lake County. That's not an opinion, that's the data from the police departments. Okay, and yeah, we do have people going through on these roads. If you approve this, to our east, Schilling's going to put a development comparable to ours, so that's 200, 250 residential units, 210 there. You're dropping 500, 600 cars that aren't driving through anywhere, they're driving here all the time. All the time. Mill Creek has two entry egress points. We're not like the gates. Gates can go north, gates can go east, west, they have a problem here on the south. If we're going north, east, or west, we can only go through Parrish or Park Place. We can escape south by sneaking out onto Parrish, driving down the country roads, hop on 115 and get over to 41. But we are really landlocked here. And so we basically feel anything like this is premature until the road infrastructure is in place. And you've heard it from a million people here. The classic growing town planning mistake is you put too much in before the roads. I came here from Naperville 4 years ago. I lived in Naperville for 28 years. We went from 80,000 to 155. Aurora's next to us. They went from about 100 to 250, okay? And they spent a great deal of time after the initial mistakes getting the road work done and a plan in place with partnering with the counties and the cities, the states, the feds, and we had the same railroad problems we have here with the bridge constraints, okay? And we're at a tipping point here. It was easy when there was no one here. There's too many people here to wing it anymore. And so the point about making a pause, taking a breath, is a good one. Plus, interest rates are high, the pressure's not so great yet. We also have a lot of people who got here who are paying taxes now. There's more money to work with. Now is the time to take a deep breath and sort this out and figure out how much you can put in here total. I've never heard anybody saying, this town can only get this big. To make a decision about that. Okay? And I think it'd be a wise thing to do based on water needs, roads, everything. Okay? And at some point, you got to say no. Yeah, everybody who comes in and says, no more after me. We can only handle so much and do it well. And it's the schools as well. In Naperville, we built 2 high schools, 5 middle schools, and a dozen grade schools in the time I was there. It's nuts. And that's real money coming out of real taxpayers. So I'm not against moving with deliberate planning, speed. But developers always want it as much as they can, as soon as they can. Your town wants the right mix, in the right order, at the right time. And so I'm echoing everything everybody else has said. That's the big stuff. And the thing is, we also can't have a train wreck. Towns have bad developments. They're like a white elephant that sits there for years because of overly aggressive planning. We don't want one of those in our town, okay? And 41's full of mistakes, okay? We have a mistake in Mill Creek. Your predecessors let them build too many units up against Parrish, so it's a pinch point. We're stuck with that. Let's not do that here, okay? Now, there's a bunch of little things we can talk about here. There's no green space, 210 units. 210 units, no meaningful green space. They're walking into our green space. We have a playground, they'd walk out Park Place, right into our little playground and our walking paths, okay? Now, we're not gonna put up armed guards and say you can't come in here, but we paid for that. We have to maintain that property. That HOA is not gonna give us any money. Okay, so, we're just looking for fairness here. And a plan, and, if you had more green space there, there'd be less units. Because the density of units is just brutal. So, we think this is premature. I think the best time to work on this is when 231's a 4-lane road, they've got the traffic calming thing sorted out, and we know what we can work with here. I think that's the best and most responsible way to go. And that's what $20 will get you. Okay, there's a series of questions here that we submitted, which are a summary of the questions for our community. It take a while to go through. I don't know if you guys, if any of these are more important for you guys to talk about than others, but it gets to some more of the specific issues. For example, there's no plan for a barrier between the townhomes and our development. We have a bump, not a berm. A berm's as big as my head, a bump is this high. We have a bump with fir trees on it, okay? That's something, but that's not much. For the people who thought there'd be commercial things further up by the road, and now they got a townhome right on top of them. And that's an area of concern, even though I talked with Steve about that, and there's some willingness to work on those things by the developer, apparently. So anyway, but I could talk here all night about little things, but only that's useful. Other people will talk about them. And Mike, do you want to go next? Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, let me say I love living in a town where people care for the town as much as you do. I absolutely love it. I moved here a few years ago, quite a bit ago. My name is Mike Vittorio. I'm from 118, that's 11118. I got used to saying it that way. Summerlin. I'm a retired fire captain, 30 years in the fire service. I'm going to approach this with a little bit different perspective. I know, obviously you have done an impact study on these developments, correct? Have we done an impact study on these developments? How they are going to impact the infrastructure? Is there one done?
So usually we take your questions and it's answered.
Well, that's one of my questions is, is there an impact study done? I think the impact study should include traffic patterns on 231, obviously. Wait, let me back up a little bit. Let me say that I was the response coordinator for my large fire department. That response coordination took into consideration traffic patterns, target hazards, chemical factories, occupancy. So I was involved in a lot of that. Traffic patterns on 231 are the big concern. Surrounding subdivisions, the water supply is another concern that I'll address here in a second. The sewer systems, the water runoff. Is the water runoff from this going to go into the retention ponds of Mill Creek that were specifically designed for the homes of Mill Creek? It wasn't designed to have 210 or retail involved in it. Was that considered? But here's where I come into play. Your fire and police department responses. They are critical when you are considering what you're doing here. I know that 231 is a state road, but your decisions can't be based on what the state will or will not do. It has to be based on what's best for the fire and police response for these areas. When we look at this now that I've been sitting in this room, the Suncrest subdivision has just been put on 231. That has to be in consideration with the impact study for this when it comes to police and fire, because you're adding people, you're adding responses. Just so you guys know, in that area, just from me living in that area, I can tell you what the target hazards are. Park Manor, target hazard. Crown Point Christian School, target hazard. The people who live in my subdivision, target hazard. The villas, the condos, or the townhouses, those have a lot of senior citizens in them, target hazards. In my capacity as a response coordinator, I had two terms I used to tell the drivers of the engines and the ambulances. First of all, engines and ambulances and aerials don't have wings. When the traffic's backed up, you can't fly over it. I don't want to tell stories. I went to a call where a lady was hanging out of a second floor window. It's a captain on an engine. 2 blocks away, stuck in traffic. Dispatcher got her on the phone. Dispatcher talking to me on the radio. Central, the Chicago Light 653, be advised, she's hanging out the second window. I'm screaming on the radio, tell her, hang your head out the window, I'm blowing my air horn, that's how close I am. Stuck in traffic. So that's what you have to deal with on 231. They don't grow wings. The roundabouts, those do great for traffic, don't they? They do great, don't they do good for traffic? You know what a roundabout is for a fire truck? You know what the other term I used all the time? Parade speed. Do you guys go to parades? When the engine is idling down the road, lights on, blowing their sirens? You get to one of those with a 92,000-pound aerial, you got to go to parade speed. So don't think that the roundabouts are going to increase your response time. It's not. It's going to slow it down. It's going to slow it down. So, parade status. The last thing on your impact study should be water supply, correct? Water supply. Here's from my perspective. Now, we all live in a town where we have water restrictions for watering grass, right? Where does that water come from? Same water that's in that fire hydrant. Same water that's in that fire hydrant. When we put in more developments like this, we take from those fire hydrants. Just so you guys know, firefighters aren't just this seat-of-the-pants, run-in kind of guys. When I get a residential fire, and I had the guys talking earlier about they were going to put a well in, and that well is going to deliver 1,000 gallons a minute, correct? That's what they said. What was it? 2,000?
Two wells.
2 at 1,000 each. As a firefighter, for me to put men or firefighters into a building on 100 square foot of fire spread, you know what 100 square foot is? 10 by 10. I have to guarantee 1,000 gallons a minute. 1,000 gallons a minute. So when we add these subdivisions, every fire hydrant that goes in at 150 feet, because that's what St. John, I think, is, 150 feet, every fire hydrant you put in, every length of hose line you put in, that pressure drops. On a on a commercial building, you have to have 10,000 gallons a minute for every 100 square feet of fire spread. 10,000 gallons a minute. So let's go back to not my subdivision, but the gates with this. Park Manor. If I was designing a response to Park Manor, that would be a 4 aerial, 6 engine response. Does St. John have that? Do they have that kind of capacity? They don't. So they have to count on surrounding villages to make up that style of response because of the target hazard. Now you got surrounding villages that you have to incorporate into your impact study. Can they handle the traffic on 231? Can they handle the extra traffic on Klein? Can they handle the extra traffic on Parrish? Those are my concerns. Those are my concerns, that this kind of development is going to lower the pressures for firefighters in my community, for residents in my community, the fire safety in my community. So, in closing, I hope you guys make the public aware, or make it public knowledge, the impact studies that you have done on these kind of developments. Because I would like to read them. I love reading technical stuff. Don't get me wrong. And again, I'd like to thank you for your service to the town of St. John, and I look forward to your answers. Thank you.
Hi, again, Karen Smith, 8595 Larkspur Lane. As I sit here and listen and did my research back there, I went on my phone. John Lawton, managing member, LBL Development, 2009-2005, John Lawton came in here and told you everything about the gates of St. John. I got the plan right here. He's telling you all about what he's going to do here. Great, we do need commercial, we have that, okay? Those units, he stated other projects look great that they've done. Please go look at those barracks that we have. 2021, second lawsuit, got compensated, that's how they got 3 extra stories there. So when I come in on Park Place and I go into my 55 and older community cottage that I have, that I sold my big house for, that's what I have to look at. You guys are, like I said before, you guys are it. Go on your phone and look up LBL Development LLC versus St. John Plan Commission, October 23, 2023. This is all the information. He's the developer. He's developing that. Who's going to be the builder? J.D. Horton, that's doing that right now? We don't have green space. When I look out, I look at that beautiful steeple, oh, thank you, God. But then I look at that. There's no trees there. We've asked for trees. We've asked for things. There's nothing. So I listened to him tell the story. 9/4/2005, John Lawton came here and told other people the story. And this is what we're dealing with everything now. But LBL Development, John Lawton's with it. Please help us.
Doug Blocker, 10591 Juniper Lane, St. John. The theory about a downtown area sounds great, but too bad you're not providing it. I mean, what you're providing is basically outlots. The outlots that you got on 41, that's what these are going to be. I mean, you're missing the point. He's taken half of the commercial area so he can build townhouses. That is all he's interested in. He wants those 70-some unit townhouses, okay? Nobody's looked at that yet. You got the townhouses where the fronts are going to be facing the rears of those duplexes. I mean, you already got duplexes as a buffer for, again, for single family to the commercial, but now you're going to have duplexes, the front of them, probably going to be 20 feet away from these rear yard areas. It's ridiculous. You got rear yard driveways. Where's the parking for these townhomes? He's going to tell you, there's plenty of parking because there's 4 units per space, 4 spaces per unit. Yeah, 2 in the garage and 2 behind it. So on those south buildings, where are those people going to park when they have more than 3 guests come over? On the other side of the townhouses there and the main road where he's got all this parking, how do those guests get over? Because you got, 9 units together. There's no way they could get there without walking a block. In my opinion, he wants to create a downtown, get rid of the townhouse users, put in more commercial. So you have a main road for the downtown. You could have businesses on each side and create a downtown. And if you don't want the businesses, put in offices. You don't need more townhouses in this location. I mean, I haven't heard anything about road improvements. Yeah, he's going to do what the state requires. What about on Parrish? You're going to put in left turn lanes? You're going to put in curb and gutter across your frontage? What about on Park Place? You got Schilling Development came in with their plan. Their street was at the south end. Now, there's going to be an offset in those roads. That's going to be a mess. So who's, I guess, depends on who goes first, or gets in there first as to line up with who. But again, you're missing the point. You're taking away commercial property so he can build townhouses, more barracks. And I do want to thank you for not installing the water and sewer prior to this meeting like you did with the barracks that you did on 107th Street. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dick Helm, 10864 Walnut Drive, St. John, Indiana. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen tonight. I'd like to go to the point that was raised by the presenter, that total control of the decisions is being handed to the town council. What's unsaid in that statement is he just made this board irrelevant. As has been said earlier tonight, you represent us, and we count on you to act on behalf of the residents of St. John, Indiana. But when the town council gets to make the decisions of what the development's going to look like, when they get to make the decisions with regard to what commercial or retail establishments are going to move in, they're doing so without the benefit of the wisdom that sits behind that dais. You become irrelevant in the process, and so I would ask you to listen to what the attorney said earlier this evening when he stated that in his 30 years, he's never heard of such a proposal before. There's good reasons that we've never heard of that type of proposal before, because it obviates this board. Secondly, I've listened to 5 presentations tonight, and I truly thank you for the time and the effort that you've put into being here to listen to our concerns. But the topic of traffic just keeps coming up over and over and over again. And what I've heard is that you can't do anything about US 231 because the state won't do anything about US 231. First, I would ask that somebody light a fire under others within this community to start pushing the state to make some decisions. And secondly, particularly with regard to US 231 and development along it, I would ask you to put a moratorium upon anything until we know what's going to happen to a major arterial highway through this community. Finally, I've listened to 4 presentations prior to this, and in every instance where somebody came asking for a zoning change, they came without detailed plans as to what was going to happen to that piece of property. And this gentleman here stood and looked at a set of plans that we were all staring at as well. And after the conversation started to turn against him, he said, well, that's not what it's going to look like. Okay. Just a recommendation. I'm new to this community, but just a final recommendation is if we want total control over what's going to happen with future development in the town of St. John, please require that anybody who's coming to you with a request for a zoning change come with a full and final set of plans so that we can make decisions about fire safety, so we can make decisions about ingress egress, so we can make decisions about density, the number of cars that are going to be hitting US 231, 500 cars from 210 houses, plus people that will be trying to use it as a retail commercial area. Imagine the impact, okay? Please, please ask that your town council change the way that these things are presented so that full and final plans are presented when a zoning change is requested. Thank you for your time.
And it's late, so I'm not going to beat any dead horses that aren't already dead, the traffic and all that. My name is Peggy Grant. I live at 9072 Green Meadow. And originally I was going to start off with talking about have there been any public safety studies done? And Mike, I want to say wonderful on that. So, but I'd like to talk more about the police part. I'm of a family of 6th generation of law enforcement, and I am retired from working 40 years with crime victims. And so I'm just raising something that hasn't been raised before, and I just want to get it on the record in case this moves forward. I live by the berm, okay? The bump, okay? So my villa looks over the bump, and when I first moved here, having been born and raised in Chicago, came back here after a stint in Ohio, and one of the things that drew me to my villa was the sense of safety, because I looked out over the nice green area we have and the cornfield, and I was told by Olthoff that the outer edge of the cornfield is commercial, which was okay. You know, I felt comfort with that. I can't tell you how many times a day I see fire trucks going by and ambulances going by, mostly going into the gates, and some police, all right? But from my standpoint, I'm concerned about the bump and what's going to go by the bump and the 240 people that are going to be living on the other side of the bump and the wide open commercial area that's beyond that. Because in my jaded view of life, that's ideal pickings for someone to come park at midnight or 1 in the morning in the commercial area and come across the bump to where, face it, there's a lot of us retired folks, single widows living, and other, what we used to call at-risk populations, who could come across the bump, hit a villa, run across the bump, and they're on their way. And I know nobody's really talked about crime because it is a very safe place. I think you want to keep it that way and not make it a temptation for those who have other plans. So that if this does happen, I would like to see some kind of a fence barrier. So that if someone has bad thoughts in mind, their only outlet is parish or park. And I know this isn't the kind of thing that people have been talking about, and you don't think about it, especially not to be sexist, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of females in front of me, okay? All right, but I do, I tell you, I can't believe the time, and I can't believe how patient you've all been. I haven't seen one yawn. I haven't seen one eye roll. I hope that when I leave, you'll say, thank God she's the last, okay? So, but I did want to go on the record and put the law enforcement piece. Has anybody really pulled law enforcement? You know, I've worked with them all my life, been around them all my life, and I know they want to keep their community safe. And what are their thoughts about all these little villa things and things coming into their place in a career that it's so hard to even get someone to work in these days? So I thank you so much, you public servants, for listening to all of us, and I hope you keep some of this in mind. And as one woman kept saying today, you are our safety barrier too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joyce McLaren.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
That's you. Can I go ahead? Yeah, go ahead. Thank you. My name is Joyce McLaren. I live at 10918 Parish, Cedar Lake. So I'm not a St. John resident, but I do have a very much a vested interest here, and I wanted to make sure that the people who are on the other side of Parish, the west side, are represented as well. We have a major issue with this. We are certainly open to the commercial status there. We thought it was a good thing to have some commercial. Family Express was certainly not what any of us expected, and I wish it had been done a little differently. But this is a good commercial plan. My concern is, I think if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And I think he did a very high-pressure sales job on throwing out how much control everyone's going to have while skirting over the issue of there was a 210 units there. Somebody mentioned 240 lives. 210 units does not represent 240 people. It represents most likely in the area 400 to 500 people. So we have to take that into consideration, and safety is a huge concern. I live I live in the first house south of Family Express, so my driveway almost meets the exit right there on Parish. Having an additional 210 units there is going to drive so much traffic through there. It's going to be next to impossible for me to get out of my driveway, and for all the people on the other side of the street, on the west side of the street, to also be getting out of their driveways. As it is, we run the risk of, right now, many things that are going on. The runoff is coming into my drainage, and I'm getting a huge amount. My driveway dips down on that side. I can't build it up because it's just, that's the way it is. We're getting a huge amount of runoff as it is. All of this is going to make that even worse. So I really wanted to say that from the commercial perspective, I don't think any of us disagree that it is absolutely something that would benefit all of the community, but I think the additional units, he was very almost subversive in trying to just take the attention off of that, and I think everyone needs to consider that and make that a focus of a part of making this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, one more thing on the emergency end of this. Somebody mentioned a moratorium until we find some answers on 231. Is everybody aware that the emergency room at Franciscan and Crown Point is now closed? It's on the other side of 65. Our other closest emergency room is St. Margaret's and Dyer. So when you clog up 231, those ambulances trying to get to the other side of 65, they just added another 5 minutes to that response time to that hospital, or you got to try to get to St. Margaret's. So think about that when you think about all these developments along this 231 corridor. Seconds matter on an ambulance. Seconds matter on an ambulance. Just to let you guys know.
All right, thank you.
Good night. My name is Dan Enright, E-N-R-I-G-H-T. I live at 9051 Green Meadow Drive. I've heard a lot of people talk about traffic. I've heard people talk about the fire engines and everything. Here's the bottom line. I've gone through all of this. And the bottom line is, you people need to plan ahead. What does that mean? Does that mean you take a look at a plat, a survey, or a plot, some kind of a workable drawing that's not even approved? So, yeah, go ahead. We need more commercial space. We need more housing. Well, the conservative way of this town has put us in this position today. To keep pushing off, well, it's the state of Indiana's fault that 231 is only 2 lanes. It's our fault that 231 is still 2 lanes, because the state of Indiana is us. And when are we going to step up to the plate, using a baseball term, and say, enough is enough. We can't have any more infrastructure until we actually widen the roads. That includes getting on the railroads rear, 2 of them. The trestles were built, nobody even knows, 1920, 1930, when people were still riding around on a horse, for crying out loud. That's a way of the past. This is the future. And for the future to be good for, not my generation, I'm done, but my kids' generation and their kids' generation, we've got to start looking at our own backyard and doing our job, which includes getting on people in Indianapolis and say, we're not going to give you any more tax money until you take care of our roads. We have, Indiana, we have Route 41. You want to go south? If you want to go anywhere south in Indiana, go to 65 if you don't want to use 41. There is no other road. Now, let's go east and west. When you got up north, you've got Ridge Road, which is Route 6. You got Route 30. Where do you go next? There is none. There's no place to go. So maybe it's time that the Plan Commission say, enough's enough. We need an east-west route through our town. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Tiernan. I live at 10875 Scarlet Oak Drive. And earlier tonight, several comments were made about who would want to have a house on 231. Well, we do. And all the people who live in that end of the gates live right along 231. So there's a lot of houses along 231. And if in this development, one thing that I was concerned about is that we need some kind of a barrier, because we're going to be right across the street. When we come out our front door, we're going to be looking right at that big new commercial development. So we need some kind of a barrier to separate us. I also want to know if the full control of all the new tenants for this commercial area is going to be up to the approval of the town council. Does that mean that there's going to be hearings like this where we get to help decide each of those tenants? How is that going to be managed? I'd like to know.
Thank you.
The sheets.
Oh.
My name is, Moore? Oh. My name is Mark Schneider, and I live in 8930 Findlay Court. Several people have talked about the development and how that development be looking right into quote-unquote our homes. And I live right at the edge. Actually, I live right here, which is very, very close. However, these mock-ups, and I want to give you guys a copy so you can see what all of the people that are going to be behind the supposed townhomes.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, we'll take it. Thank you.
All right, and that's really all I wanted to do is show you guys.
Thank you. All right, anyone else who would like to come up for public comment? Anyone else?
Okay. Thanks. Matt Rohr, 11069 Hickory Grove Road. This legal issue, how this works legally, what the exposures are to the town for liability, these are no jokes. I don't see how in any responsible way you can approve this with that many open questions. I'm not an expert real estate lawyer, but I didn't know it was this unprecedented and it was this new. I mean, you talk about taking a step and taking back and taking a pause for problems we know. How can you responsibly say, oh, go ahead, guys, we don't know what's going to happen? This has got to get sorted out, and this is technical and tricky. And that's, to me, the deal breaker. All this other stuff's important, but that's the angle. And you've got to do that before you can do anything. I mean, it's just that simple.
My name is Gary DeBoer, and I live on Green Meadow Drive. And the answer just got pretty clear here. If they want to do this magic trick with the commercial side, fine, don't change the zoning, let them take it to the village board. Answer's done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else who'd like to come up for public comment? Mr. Rohr, to the extent, no, you don't need to come up, but I have this. Do you want this read into the record, or has your comments that you've made been sufficient?
Okay, the one thing that's on there that we didn't talk about is there's significant business risk with this concept. This is a wing and a prayer, okay? And the idea is, explained to me, was if you have the townhomes, that's gonna be an attraction, the type of commercial that we're looking for. So it's like a downtown Crown Point where people live nearby, can walk to the restaurants and so on, and there's a logic to that. But it's a gamble. And I don't think, I'm unaware of any commitments by anybody to come in there. This is why my concern about a failed development. We have this big white elephant here. The townhomes get built, but none of the commercial happens. You got the problem, none of the benefit. And that's the one thing, and there's in that letter that we didn't talk about here. But everything else we've covered. There's questions on there, but I think we beat it to death.
I just don't want, I want to make sure it's not excluded, that you've had your chance to be heard because you are here, so.
The offer, and
Okay, thank you.
You can pass the letter on to the board, you don't have to read it for everybody here. Someone wants a copy,
Perfect, thank you. Okay, anyone else for public comment?
Harold Monken, 8443 Larkspur. Just a couple comments. It's fantastic that they have a board, an HOA board, run by the HOA. I live in the Gates of St. John. Lawton runs my board. Won't change until it ever fulfills the whole thing, is what I'm told. He's going to not sell ever that property. The man stated that. He's never going to sell it. And once the thing is built, Lawton will be in charge of that board, of that HOA for that PUD, and I'm sure there's going to be an HOA for the commercial area. Once again, nothing changes. Thank you.
All right, anyone else for public comment? Going once, I'm going to ask very quickly, going twice. Third time's a charm. Public comment is closed. Mr. Kill, if you'd like to come back up. And again, it is getting late, folks. I understand. I appreciate everybody's patience, but if we can just allow Mr. Kill to have any replies that he wants, if we can do that quietly, and then we'll take what action we deem necessary.
I guess, I've heard it's kind of a risk. It's kind of a lot of things. It might be very hard to enforce legally. It might be this. It's a lot of mites. I mean, I guess we're the first ones to attempt something like this. So there's always a certain fear of the unknown, but this is something that we believe the town will embrace, and it will help. We're not glossing over the units. The units are right on the drawing. There are 210 units. Are there going to be 2 people in each unit? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. So could there be 2.5? Could there be 1.9? Absolutely, I don't know. But the units are there, but when you have a commercial project and you want to promote walkability, and in essence, the front and the back of the buildings are going to look the same. It's going to look like a double frontage building, meaning you're going to have a really nice look from 231, and then you'll have that same feel from the back, so people are attracted to it, is what we're envisioning.
Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, public comment is closed.
There's not going to be dumpsters in the back, there's going to be outside seating, but again, that's why we are vesting a lot of control in this project with the town, so that the town can get something they want. Now, let's say the town council approves a use and a building architecture type. That then has to come, site plans have to be prepared, engineering, all the parking lot layout, all of that comes to the plan commission and still has to go through that whole process. So the reference to usurping the control of the Plan Commission couldn't be further from the truth. You guys have planning authority. The Plan Commission has site plan authority. The Plan Commission has all of that. All of that is still vested with the Plan Commission. It's not vested with the Town Council. We are simply trying to let the Town Council, who are obviously elected, let them try to shape the community and bring in some business that they would like. And I mean, everybody wants restaurants, and obviously, we do too, and things like that, nice little coffee shop or whatever, I don't know. But I just don't know that some of the characterizations that were made tonight are actually quite fair. I mean, just because it's never been done before, and I've never done it either, Adam hasn't, it doesn't mean it can't be done. A public-private partnership, these happen all the time. So that's why we figured, okay, well, take this to the Town Council, let them decide if ultimately, they are the ones who are going to have to sign a zoning commitment and, agree to it with the developer. I mean, we just simply want to do something that, even though it hasn't been done, doesn't mean it can't. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that's why the town attorney's there for review and everything. And, I would hope this would be a model that other communities are going to look at and say, hey, look at St. John. They got to pick and choose with the developer what they wanted. Why can't we do that? What did they do down there? Just because it hasn't happened before doesn't mean it can't. I guess in closing, I mean, just to address some of the comments, I mean, obviously the intersections, Parish, it's going to be a multi-lane traffic circle. It extends way down on Parish. We're going to tie right into it. It's a big project. So to the extent it goes to Mill Creek, it'll be improved correctly. Once we hit Mill Creek, we're pinched. And so to the extent we go to Mill Creek, we'll have it all widened. And there'll be XL lanes, decel lanes that come out, flow into the circle. I mean, so we're going to have to match NDOT there, and they're actually coming way down in our project. So that's not even going to be, we're just going to match up to them. I mean, they've got a lot of improvements planned at 231 in Parish. It's not a small project. It's a major project. So,
Thank you.
Guess I'm not.
All right, questions, comments from the panel? Anyone?
A lot of good points were brought up, the legal aspect and everything else. My opinion, my thoughts is close it with no recommendation and have the hearing done with.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please. All right, so at this point, with the ending of the public hearing, as with the other ones we've had, available options would be a favorable recommendation to the town council, unfavorable, or as the town manager just said, no recommendation to the town council. Again, with any motion should be styled to make reference to the findings of fact contained within the packet. With that, the chair would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for no recommendation to the town council.
A motion for no recommendation. Joe, did you second? We have a motion for no recommendation to the town council. The motion has been seconded. Is there any further discussion or commentary on the motion itself?
Could I ask who made the first motion? And
Russ.
Russ made the first motion. I apologize. And Mr. Joe made the second.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. All right. With that, all in favor of the motion, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Nay. So we are 5-1 on no recommendation of the town council. With that, public hearing on 2024-12, the Gates of St. John units 29, 30, and 31 is hereby closed. And from the agenda standpoint, all public hearings are done for tonight. Agenda item number 6, old and new business. Item A, St. John Commons extension of letter of credit.
Hello? Still here, Brad?
Brad.
Developer, St. John Commons LLC. What you have before you is a letter of credit renewal that we are in the process of getting from our bank. In relation to the commercial development.
Could you adjust your microphone, please?
Could you pull your mic up a little bit so they can hear us?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Or is it not?
I don't know. Did you touch the back of it?
Steve, turn it on.
Is it on? Is there a green light on there? Can we check, please?
There we go.
It's on.
Brad Lambert, developer, St. John Commons LLC. The letter of credit that we have with the town of St. John.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, we still have some official business to conduct. If you'd like to chat, you can do so outside. If not, I would ask for proper decorum. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. So the letter of credit that has expired is currently being renewed over at the People's Bank. I did have our personal banker, our commercial banker, for that project, it was out on a leave of absence all last month, and so that's what's delayed us in getting that renewal to the town. That letter of credit is directly proportioned to the public improvements on the commercial side of the development, which includes the improvements to the Calumet Avenue in front of our St. John Commons development, and the other public infrastructure, water main, et cetera, related to the development that are along Calumet Avenue. And we don't have any request for a reduction in the letter or anything like right now, but all of those improvements are being done right now, as a matter of fact, and hopefully they will be in the next 30 days or so, when we'll come back to the commission and ask for a reduction. But for now, it will be just a renewal of the existing letter and the existing amount.
All right, any questions, comments from the panel? I think at this point, just would be a motion to extend the letter of credit.
Motion to grant extension on his letter of credit.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to extend the letter of credit. Any further comments, discussions on the motion? There being none, all in favor, so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one additional item to add to the agenda tonight. Mr. Reddick, if you'd like to come up.
I'll be brief, I know it's late. Doug Reddick with DVG, representing Andy James in Castle Rock subdivision. We presented 2 weeks ago at the study session a 5-lot subdivision, Castle Rock Phase 1A. I told you 2 weeks ago I was intending to come back tonight to request permission to advertise, or at least I desired to come back tonight to request permission to advertise. And that's what I'm here for. I failed to get the application in last week. And I turned it in this Monday, paid the application fee, so I had submitted the plat, I hadn't submitted the application. It's my fault, it's an oversight. A whole month over something so simple. The engineering's done, the plat's done. We'd like to have a public hearing 1 month from tonight, and that's what I'm here for, to ask for that courtesy.
Any issues, questions? I don't have any. So yeah, just make sure you work to get everything you need to as far as notice requirements, things like that, and we'll see you back in a month.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. If there was a dead horse to beat, I'm going to offer it up. Item 7, public comment. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment from the public that we haven't already heard from tonight? Please come. No, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Carol Nemchek. I live at 9198 Green Meadow Drive. I just want to say thank you for your patience tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right. Anyone else? Oh, sorry.
I'm walking fast as I can.
I just have a question about.
Get your name and address for the record. I'm just-
Carl McClusack, 8553 Larkspur Terrace. I have a question about your actions here. Now go to the town board, town council, and regardless of how you recommend unfavorably, favorably, or no recommendation, they can take action and approve, correct?
Buck stops with them, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
You enjoying your long meeting?
I told my wife before I came, don't plan for me to come home anytime soon. She's texting me now, are you still here? So anyway, anyone else for public comment? Going once, twice, 3 times, I'm not asking again. Item 8, adjournment.